I'm ready whenever you are, big brother.
All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics of Local. But more importantly, y'all know if it is the fourth Friday, y'all know it's time for the disciples. So they're going to be up first, and they're going to have some dynamite guests. And looking forward to their guests. They will introduce them and tell you who they are. That's going to be first. And then, of course, after that, we're going to be talking to, at 7 o'clock, we're going to talk to social worker Love Gaillard. We're going to talk to her about some of the work she's doing around parent education and so forth. So we're going to talk to her. Then at 7:30, we're going to have a conversation with Quentin Walcott of Connect New York and Latino and Bridges Match. So we'll talk to him at 7:30. And of course, at 8, we're going to have a conversation with Naseed Gifted about his 9th annual Khemfest on September 23rd and 24th. And of course, y'all know at 8:30 it'll be DJ Rhino. So we'll have a real full conversation tonight on a number of different topics. Of course, y'all know John Austin, who is one of the other hosts of All Politics of Local. He's traveling tonight with his kids, the debaters from Science High School. Zaid is also another one of the co-hosts. He's hosting an event downtown Newark tonight. And so Donna should be coming through. And I believe that Dashan is going to be sitting in and co-hosting as well. And there's my brother right there. So
he's there.
Peace, Dashan.
Dashan.
Hotep Black Power. It's wonderful to join an illustrious panel. It's always an honor, not just when I am asked to co-host, but even when I'm asked to be on as a panelist. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, brother. Good to see you. So y'all know it's not my show. Y'all know this show belongs to the disciples. So I'm going to go on and pass it off to them, and they can talk about what their show is going to look like tonight. And wherever they need me to assist, I'm there to assist. And Roundtree, I guess I'll give it to you, and then you can introduce your brother, and then talk about your other brother that's not with y'all tonight.
Well, good evening, Newark and surrounding communities that have tuned in to All Politics Are Local. We are so, I'm not going to do my regular little hip hop. Listen, with hip hop's number one All Politics Are Local radio station on the internet, on Facebook Live. Good evening to the first lady of this generation, the beautiful and brilliant Melina Ali. It is so good that you've always tuned in to listen to us ever since we started. We're excited about this evening. There are two fantastic guests that are going to be on with myself and my big brother, Pastor in the Hood, Ali, Brother Ed. It's not my show, Ali's show. It is our show. And so not only will you kick in when you need to get in, you're going to be in whenever we need you to do whatever is necessary for this phenomenal conversation that's going to take place tonight. Good evening, Deshaun. And now I'm going to turn it over to my big brother. Everyone knows I'm Councilwoman. Everyone knows I'm Reverend. But what's most important, that I'm a servant to the people here tonight with the excitement of two phenomenal guests that Pastor Ali I have coming on. We miss our brother, Minister Haqq Muhammad, part of the disciples. Oh, when he's not here, we have to add a little bit more fuel to the fire, because we know he makes up the 3-part for us to go forward to give you information and represent the disciples. It is in your hands, my big brother, Pastor Bryant Ali.
Grace and peace, Councilwoman Reverend Roundtree, and to all my co-hosts. And what a blessing it is for me to be back. After a 2 months hiatus, 1 month I was in the hospital, the next month I was in Mexico, uniting my niece in holy matrimony. And it's just good to get back in the flow. I talked to Brother Haqq Muhammad earlier, just to hear his voice and just to hear his energy. And he sends his greetings and regards, and we know that he had to take care of some business, and you know when you got to take care of business, business got to be handled. So I'm excited to be back, and it's just good to be alive now. I mean, with so much going on in our earth and so much going on in creation, it's good to know that we can come together as one and one united, because we realize that unless two walk together, how can they agree? And oh, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And that's brother and sisters. So I'm excited. I'm excited about tonight's show. I'm excited just to be alive. I'm excited to be out of the hospital. I'm excited to be clothed in my right mind. So it's all good in the
hood. Well, I'm excited about both of y'all being in your right mind tonight. Praise God. You know. So listen, I know it's y'all show, but I want to just Rountree, if you could just give us an update on the revival y'all did last Friday with the mayor. You on mute?
She's on the phone.
Oh,
she's making phone. She's letting people know she.
No, listen, the revival was phenomenal. Listen, if you don't know, you interviewed little Master Hilton Rawls, but that 12-year-old and that 23-year-old brought a message that was phenomenal. One of the messages we're gonna get out of this. So there's a lot of things that we don't even realize that a 12-year-old can give it. Well, they say the child shall lead. We have to stop thinking only the elders have the wisdom. But what's most important is that the elders and the youth came together, and the elders sat back and let the youth do what they do to spread the message about unity, to spread the message about a mission. There's a lot of people that are in ministry on many levels. You do ministry, Brother Ed. You do ministry with All Politics Local, America's number one hip hop radio station. You do radio talk show. You do ministry. These two young people showed us something that really needs to be shown on another level. We do it with advocacy. We do it for Black Lives Matter. We do it, but in ministry, statewide, when you bring young people together and elders together to send out a message that we can sit in the same room and talk about some things, and at the same time listen to some things that will help benefit us in our communities. It was great. I want to give a shout out to Bishop Donald Hilliard and Pastor Phyllis. A shout out to their team who so graciously opened their doors, and a shout out to the Newark Interfaith Alliance, because Newark was in the house. They got in their cars, drove down the Parkway to support this initiative. And I also want to give a shout out to our beautiful Dr. Bridgeforth, who brought 3 little young guys with her. And those 3 little young men came in and did an amazing, one of them did a poem. He didn't even know who was going to do it. She had him talk to me about it and show me what he could say. And I did it. I did it. I called him out, Pastor Ali. I said, come here, young man, we can do this on tonight. He was like, sure. And he went up and he did the whole, I believe, what I believe. What I believe, and what he believed was what Christ did. What he believed is what God will do. He recited this whole right on the spot. He wasn't a Master Hilton Rawls, but just the fact that he had the courage, because we said the platform is yours. He was 9 years old. So, Brother Ed, we got a whole lot coming up, but I'll talk about that later. We got a whole lot of things coming up. And I see a lot of people that are capitalizing on this interfaith piece. Interfaith has been around for a very long time, but now people see where 15 years ago, to have a Muslim and a Christian sitting in the same room having a conversation. Listen, Malcolm and Martin did it, but the large numbers of people coming together, now it's like popular. Now everybody's jumping on the interfaith piece. But it should have always been, because as Pastor Ali just said, in Psalms 133 reads, oh, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. The Bible also speaks of the Jews and the Gentiles, and and how about us being free. We will never ever, we talk about freedom, and when you see me, you see a free woman. When you see Ali, when you see Brother Ed, you see freedom. But the real truth is, if we really want to be free, we will learn how to treat each other right, love one another, in spite of our differences. So, wait a minute, I went off on the tangent. But
That's all right. You took the
the
way.
statewide
You took the
revival
reality.
was all of that.
You summed it up. The reality is, I don't have time to be bound with nobody else's issues. I got issues of my own, but I don't hate anyone. I don't have time to be hating no one. That impedes me from going forth doing what I have to do. And in the hospital, laying on my back, I saw a lot of stuff, and I seen a lot of stuff. And when I went into that cardio suite, I wasn't looking around to see what color they were. I introduced myself to them and said, "You know what you're doing?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, let's get it on." And I went in and came out. Didn't know what they believed, didn't know what they expected, but I expected them to do what they were called to do, and that was to be a operator on my body. And it's the same thing we as men and women of God. People expect us to do what we say we are called to do. And that's to bring forth the truth, that's to love, and that's to not be fooled. Now, I'm not saying that people can step on you. I'm not talking about that. No, but I'm talking about you be the peacemaker. You be the one that will walk away from the argument instead of starting the argument, unless it's going to benefit the hood.
Well said, my brother. Well said. And Rountree, let me ask you a question. I know you said a lot of folks drove down from Newark. So was it well attended with community folk from down here as well?
So when you talk about Perth Amboy, and you talk about a place that holds 1,500 people on a Friday night, and you have the women's conference going on and all these various. I was supposed to be not supposed to be. I was invited to 2 other women events that same night and could not make it. So who was there was supposed to be there. The cathedral is not, okay, now I got to come off here. Hold on.
Well, I know the cathedral's a big location. Like she said, it holds 1,500 people. And you're talking 3 levels.
Right.
So you're talking the down level to hold about 800. Then you're talking about the next level to hold 400. Then you're talking about the level after that to hold 300. So you're talking a place that holds 1,500 people on Friday night. So if you can get that the bottom level half full, you're doing great. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my brother speaking. As you all can see, I'm back in my office, right? Can you tell I'm not on the phone?
You in the right place, baby.
Well, listen, y'all. I'm Rountree. I'm going to go ahead and begin to add your guests. I see that they're in the waiting room, so we're going to add them to you, and we'll add them both to Rountree.
All right. Well, good evening. Good evening to
Look
all
at him. Look
evening.
disciples.
How's everybody?
Hey, Marcus Randolph, and my sister, Nathan. I haven't seen you in ages, girl, but you're still looking lovely, and see, still doing your thing. So, good evening. We welcome you to
Look at my girl.
All Politics are Local, and I'm gonna allow my comrade, my co-host, to open up and let's see what's going on with y'all.
So listen, watch this. About a month ago, Brother Ed came and he stated that, and we're going to be doing more of this. We're going to have more guests. We've been on for quite a few years, Brother Randolph and Andrea. I don't even know whether it's 7, 8, I don't even know. But going forward, we are going to be inviting individuals and have had a few guests on. But what's so profound about this is this was spoken to existence by Brother Ed a month ago. He says, listen, you know what? They're doing some things down in Newark. Why don't we have them on the show? And I said, well, listen, there's a new girl. I think that's how it started. There's a couple of new sheriffs doing some new things. And once I spoke to one, that was like, well, we can't do one. You know, we got to do both. And it worked out where they both agreed to come and be our guests. Invest Newark is doing some magnificent things. We have Marcus T. Randolph, who is Invest Newark's CEO. And we're not going to go into the bio right now. We'll probably go into it a little later. And then we have the beautiful Andrea Mason, who we have known for, I don't know, oh, Lord, too long. People think we're related. They think she's my sister. She loves Newark. She's a Newark native, a resident of Newark. And now she has a key position in Invest Newark. And they normally say the best way to introduce a preacher is to let them preach. Well, I think the best way to introduce Marcus and Andrea is to let them speak. So I think that we're going to go ladies first, brother Deshaun, brother Ed. Don't you think so, brother Randolph? Andrea L. Mason from Invest Newark. It is now in your hands.
Thank you so much for having us. This is truly an honor. My brother / cousin by name, Mr. Riley, has been trying to get me on for quite some time. So I'm grateful that today was the day that the Lord saw fit for me to come on and partake. So I am Andrea L. Mason, one of the newest members here at Invest Newark. I serve as the Business Operations Officer. And I'm just happy to be a part of this great organization. It is the Community Economic Development Corp, and serves as, well, we primarily serve for general purposes. We want to encourage small business development, real estate development. We also are not a bank, but we have a little funding for those businesses or individuals that need a little help getting off the ground. We also have a big program, Newark Fiber. Many people have heard of it, but that's how people can connect to the internet. So we'll talk about that program in a bit. And of course, our claim to fame lately has been the Newark Land Bank, which is New Jersey's only land bank. And we'll talk about that shortly, because many people don't know what a land bank is. But I'm grateful to be a part of the team. I am so grateful for Mr. Randolph just allowing me the opportunity to join the team. And what I can say about Invest Newark is our doors are open. We are definitely public facing. We are community friendly, and we are a team here. So, come on down. We're open and look forward to helping whomever's in need.
Right. Randolph.
Well, thank you. Thank you all so much for thinking of us and having us on. Andrea pretty much summed it up, but I'll talk a little bit. I've been here about a year and a half, and it has been quite a ride. I have mostly worked in a nonprofit arena, various types of non-for-profits. I've most recently worked for JP Morgan Chase. But I decided that, after spending some time, many years in affordable housing finance, that I wanted to be in a position to help people before they got to a place where they need to get into what is sometimes a very challenging lottery to find affordable housing units. So I thought maybe I can start a little bit earlier with folks, and maybe I can take a different approach. And being here certainly has given me the opportunity to do that. The land bank continues to grow, continues to get a lot of information, a lot of notice. We are proud that we're making Newark residents homeowners and to say that they love and have invested in. We also want to continue to lift up the business community of all sizes, the single sole entrepreneur, those who are just hired their first person, those who are looking to expand. We're here for those folks. And certainly the broadband, our fiber initiatives, there's a lot that we're doing there. We want to make sure that anybody in the city who needs and wants affordable broadband at home is able to get that. And so we want to provide that to those folks. Andrea has been a big addition to this team. One, everybody knows her. And so I'm very happy to have her here on this team to help with getting the word out about what it is we do. But also a liaison, because she does know so many people. She's making our work and making us more effective in what we're doing, the ways that we hope to serve the community. So, that's a little bit about what we're doing. We can go into more detail if you like, or there's some questions we can answer. But thanks again for thinking of us and having us today.
Let me ask you this question. You talked about the broadband. Is that for
Yes.
individual houses or is that for neighborhoods as a whole?
That's right. The goal is to get it to individual houses. One thing that the federal government has made available is a program called Affordable Connectivity Program, where they'll provide a $30 subsidy for households that qualify. And in some cases, that can get your broadband, your internet bill down to maybe zero if you select one of the cheaper plans. And certainly there's a minimum amount of speed that's required, no matter what what the plan is. But so that's one way to do it. But we're also working to have broadband that's owned and sponsored by the city available to folks. And we are starting that work in some of our public housing complexes and hoping to grow off of that.
Councilwoman?
Well, we get a lot of requests, and I've really had to call Andrea on many occasions. Before Andrea became a part of Invest Newark, I called on Mr. Randolph a couple of times, and because EHD that's in this, actually they think that we're just real estate agents sitting around with all types of houses and land here in the city of Newark. We're really excited about Invest Newark because it cuts out a lot of the red tape for those who are interested. If there is anything available in their list for interested I won't say investors, purchasers, people who want to buy homes. I have a lot of churches calling Pastor Ali asking. Andrea was there 1 week and got a phone call from somebody. And I said, well, let me call Andrea real quick and see whether she can answer this question, because she's such a shaker and a mover, Mr. Randolph. You are just so, Invest Newark is so blessed to have her as a part of the team over there, because not only is she a shaker and a mover, she's someone who's going to get the job done wherever she is thoroughly. And that is so important. So Invest Newark now has an asset that if we can't do it, you will know. And if it can be done, it's going to be done efficiently. When it comes to, I missed a little portion because someone, of course, I'm in my office, and believe it or not, who knows I'm here for the 733 number to be ringing. Andrea, how does it feel being in that position? Now, business, listen, you were always a great operator, and you know how to handle operations where you are. What do you see the difference and how this is going to benefit our Newark residents with you being in that position?
Ooh, great question. Thank you, Reverend Roundtree. So, wow. First of all, thanks for those kind words. I think a tear or two may have fallen while you were talking. I appreciate that, and thank you. So in this capacity, though, I envision that Invest Newark will become a household name. Prior to me getting here, many people that I spoke to didn't know what Invest Newark is, or even the organizations that it was prior to. So it's had a couple of name changes. And people may have heard the names, but still not known what specifically it is that the organization did. So my goal, honestly, is to make sure that it becomes a household name, as I did even for Newark People's Assembly, which is my former role within the mayor's office. We have so much that we can assist with for our Newark residents. And a lot of people say, okay, well, I don't have a business plan, or I want to be an entrepreneur and I need some help, or I don't have this, I don't have that. But those are the types of things that Invest Newark can specifically help with. We have a business development team. We have our business development team is probably really the largest, but we have a real estate development team. So if there are individuals that are interested in getting into real estate, purchasing something, or even leasing something within the city, that's something that we can assist with.
So that, Brother Ali, Pastor, you know what's good about that? Because I talk to people, and everything with me right now is preparation. It always has been and it always will be. And the worst thing a person can do is want to get into something and don't know what to do with it when they get it, don't know how to get it, don't know how to manage it. I mean, we talk about, and with the women, I remember us doing our first meeting, and it was on home ownership. And I'm going to be very transparent. I said, some people don't know how to manage their rent money. So you talk about buying a home. What audience are we pulling? So we're trying to help those grow. Then those with home ownership that are interested in home ownership, that's a different body of people. Those who are trying to buy a home, that's another body of people. Those who need the financial piece, or even to know how to manage real estate or know what to do in real estate, that's another body. And what's good about Invest Newark, which I'm hearing from you, is that you help in all of those areas. I do know you do seminars, and there's so many other programs you have in place. But before you start talking about the business operations officer and a little bit more detailed, Mr. Randolph, you were called at a very critical time to lead this phenomenal, awesome agency that is doing a lot with the businesses in the city of Newark, land in the city of Newark. Why don't you just give us just a little? It's not similar. I want to ask you the same thing I asked Ms. Mason, but I do. No, I don't. But I do want to ask you, since this is important to Newarkers, I believe. What do you feel the outcome of your input and your participation in the programming that you deliver will do to benefit Newarkers?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. I said to someone just earlier today, I said if I had to boil down everything that we do here at Invest Newark, it really is to help the residents of Newark build wealth and keep wealth. And so I'm hoping that while we're on this sort of hot streak here in Newark with so much attention here, that we get to a place where everybody is benefiting. And so
froze up.
that we want the folks who have lived here to benefit from it. So, whether that's you own a home, whether that's your business is growing, whether that's, as you said, like maybe it's just that now you know how to manage your own finances so that you can then go and try to manage something that's more like a business. I mean, but we want the folks who've been here to really benefit from it. I think that's more sort of like an organic growth. And I would say that that's not always been the case. And so when we talk to people who come in and want to invest in Newark, we make that a requirement. You got to make sure that you're keeping in mind of folks who've lived here all this time.
So I already knew all of these answers, right? But the people that are watching, Brother Ali, they need to hear this because they don't know. Some people might have never seen Marcus Randolph's face. Everybody, listen, there's not many who haven't seen Andreas, but it's almost like the CEO of Fortune 500 companies in nature. You very rarely get to see the person behind all of the operations that are happening unless you see it on the cover of a magazine or you see it in the newspaper with good news, of course, good positive news. And so this is why it's so imperative that people put a face with the name that's behind the force. You were chosen, Andrea was chosen, and I do believe in a long time we have not had an agency such as this run by such reputable people that are critical thinkers, that are people-centric, and really want to see Newark residents and Newark investors benefit from what you have available to them, while at the same time gaining the knowledge it's going to take them to maintain and sustain whatever it is that they set out to do. So once again, now listen, I have a co-host Pastor
I like
Ali.
on this. I would like to elaborate on this as a pastor, as one who deals in nonprofits. And I think in this day and age, the churches are shifting. They're not just going to church. They're looking to take over communities, business-wise, providing employment, et cetera, et cetera. What things are you putting in place, or do you already have in place to help a church do more than just have church?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the things that I'm very interested in, and we've had a couple of conversations, really just a couple, but we have been contacted by churches that are looking to do some development or looking to acquire the piece of property that's next to the church. As we look at trying to shift a little bit ourselves and think about how this organization can do some affordable housing development, it is a natural fit to reach out to the faith community to see if there's a way to form a partnership. And I'm sure you all have seen in other cities where churches are partnering up, particularly in dense places like where we live, where the church might contribute its land, or in some cases, the church facility itself. In exchange for that, a new building is built. The church gets the ground floor for their sanctuary or worship center, and then there's housing on top of that. So there's some creative models and things that we can look at, and I'm trying to talk to my team about doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that because my bishop, my covering out of Jacksonville, Florida, they do a whole lot of stuff through the church. Now they have 2 restaurants, multi-million-dollar restaurants that employ over 200 people through the church. They have a mall through the church. So, even though they have land down there, that concept can still be done here because we may be landlocked, but we can do more creative things with the land that we have.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I think it's being creative. It's a willingness. Sometimes you have to drag people to the table because these things do require money. So sometimes you have to drag those funders to the table. But you got to build a team. And in some ways it is social impact real estate, if you want to call it that. But real estate projects can meet a number of needs. And so, Pastor, like you just mentioned, I mean, a church that's going forward with a restaurant that's good. It provides a service to the community, but it's also employing people, right? And that's ministry.
That's the key. And I hope some of the pastors that are listening will listen.
Oh, that's more than ministry. That's economic development.
Yeah, think outside of the box. Outside of the box.
That's economic development.
But something we have to keep in mind, family. Remember, at one time within the Black community, the church was the bank, the credit union, the school. It was that simple. So that's the Black church tradition. So as I'm listening to it, it's like an updated version, but that's what the church has represented within our community for so many decades.
That's right.
And we have the reinvestment we established with this new generation. They have to be introduced to it.
Right.
But many of us, that's history. That's not current.
Right. That's right. Right. There are many of us who don't remember that. We're not old enough to remember that, or didn't come up in that way. But that's true. We gotta make sure those here now know that is not only our history, but it's our future as well.
Can you elaborate on that, Sister Mason? I see you smiling.
So I'm smiling because I'm still sort of stuck on what we were discussing before. So when you asked Mr. Randolph a similar but different question than you asked me about how the community, how we would bring, I don't remember specifically, but I know that I wanted to add that Invest Newark's motto is really to advance economic prosperity for all Newarkers. So even with this partnerships or the collaborations with the nonprofit world, the clergy, churches, the masjids, the mosques, what have you, there is opportunities for wealth building, and intergenerational wealth building.
Yes.
Quite often, even from the church that I just recently started attending, it was the pastor, the founding pastor retired, and then the son became the pastor, and now the son is trying to, keep the legacy going and uphold the division and everything that the former pastor, had in mind. So whether it is bringing people in by way of Sunday, in being in the sanctuary, listening to the oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but having, listening to the sermon on a Sunday, or whether it's having after school enrichment, bringing in a daycare center, if it's having
Tutoring.
intramurals after school, whatever it is that can help build up the community, as well as even, and it's not so much about building revenue, but that also could be a source of revenue.
Absolutely.
Not only that, that opens the door up for revenue.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Different options.
Yeah, post-pandemic, we have to think differently, because a lot of times the old model is not working now. It's post-pandemic, so everybody's on even footing, I believe. But only those that pursue it, we have to see things with a new mindset. And with that new mindset, we have to have a mind to work. Like you say, bringing in, thinking of different things. Before, when people hear the church, they think all we do is clap our hands and shout. We do more than that. The church is a group of people, not the building. But it's the people that come into the building, and the same people that come into the building are the same people that live in our neighborhood. When I talk about church, I'm talking about all faith and economically coming together and doing one thing, because one may have the money, the other one may have the building. Come together. One may have the money and the building, but don't have the people. Come together. And I think this is a good time for some of the churches and nonprofits, so to speak, organizations to come together with for-profit organizations and make it happen.
So Brother Marcus, I was wondering if I could just chime in for a moment. A couple of things Andrea said. I think that based around this whole idea of modeling wealth building, as you know, in the city of Newark, there's this whole idea based around folks not being able to afford to live in Newark. Based around real estate and so forth. What is it that of course Invest Newark can do to help the residents? Because what we're hearing is folks are saying, well, we don't want Newark, to become Brooklyn, right? Well, all of a sudden, you got all of these yuppies and buppies who can afford to live in Newark, but the average Black person now all of a sudden can't afford to live in Newark. What is it, or how is it that Invest Newark could be a catalyst in terms of helping our people make sure that they don't lose their homes in this particular climate?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talk a little bit deeper about the land bank. One thing that we want to do, we have a couple different programs, but really the land bank is in part to make sure that there are affordable options available to people. To date, we have created home ownership opportunities. Some of the folks who have purchased houses from the land bank have been able to use a Section 8 voucher to convert that from covering rent to now paying about 80% of their mortgage. We're also trying to make sure that those people who, Ed, as you noted, they still can't afford to pay what now is starting to be the market price for Newark housing, but they're not at the point where they're getting a voucher. So there's sort of this middle tranche of folks. We're trying to create some opportunities for those folks as well to be able to afford a home. And the other thing that we're doing, and this is also why, back to my earlier comment, where we are starting to have some conversations with churches, we want to sort of unlock the puzzle, I guess I'd say, how we can also play a part in putting up some apartment buildings, but making sure that those units hopefully all of them, but at least the majority of them are being able to be rented at lower prices. So basically, below market, and that requires some sometimes many different funding sources. But I do believe there's a way to do that. We have a couple of those in the hopper right now that we're trying to put together.
Do you remember, and Brother Ali and Reverend Louise, you probably remember this, and you as well, Brother Marcus, because I know you said you worked for Chase in New York.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when Reverend Butts had sort of took that model that you just talked about, and what he did is that he actually went and took a number of those abandoned buildings in Harlem, and he created a construction company. And the church's construction company actually renovated those properties, and then they actually sold those properties, not sold them, but they rented them out to people who were considered quote unquote low income.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that model you talking about, wow, if we could do that in Newark, through Invest Newark and do that in Newark, wow, Brother Ali and Reverend Roundtree through the church, that would be awesome. That would be one way for us to be able to save our people, particularly in the city, through Invest Newark.
Yeah, absolutely. Pastor Butts, one of my personal heroes, because he did that type of work. And there are other folks around the country, others in New York, Johnny Ray Youngblood. And these are some of my favorite pastors and preachers. Not just because
Ray Youngblood, he was out of Brooklyn, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Youngbloods in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But they saw the need in their communities, and they said, well, who else is going to do it? Well, I'll do it, right? And they put it together, and they made it work. And so that's always been very motivational for me. Would love to see that happen here in Newark, and it's willingness, collaboration. We got to learn how to work together. And some people got pulled to the table to make these things happen.
Let me
we can do it.
Let me just say, we're talking about individuals in New York. Let's not negate the fact that there were some Newark pastors that did the same thing. The mindset of the generation and availability today is a whole lot different of land and pricing. My father was a developer. My father worked with I don't want to call their names, but with a developer before he became his own developer. And he worked with a young man who had everything in-house. Everything was in-house, but they used this group of preachers, and you would remember this, Pastor Ali, to get the land at $4. So they used a nonprofit to get the land, but they made all the money. But they were building houses so that these were affordable homes. The market was a little bit better. You could buy a two-family for $160,000, which is brand new from the floor up, which is unheard of today. I can go back further than that. There was a pastor named Horace Sharper. Pilgrim. There are housing developments and homes right now in the city of Newark that pastors did come together and collaborate on. I've been speaking lately for the past 5 years to the group of pastors that I'm working with to say, listen, don't let us just have an organization and people say, oh my God, Roundtree has a great group of pastors. They're doing great things in Newark. Well, when people move on, what have we left behind? We can look at St. James. I know there's some issues down at 440 now, but that building came out of the ministry at St. James AME Church. So there are buildings in Newark right now that pastors did create low income and affordable housing. Houses as well. To create. Matter of fact, people of the other persuasion, those developers would make sure, and they do today, that before the shovel was in the ground, Andrea, contracts were signed on a model home. I mean, do you remember that, Ali?
Yeah.
The houses my father built before, when he was with this particular developer, before the people even put the shovel in the ground, they looked at a model of what they were purchasing. And so by the time the house was finished, they were ready to close. So the system, the availability, the mindset, the work, the labor, we have got to work on, the mayor talks about all the time, ownership. But before you can own, you got to learn how to maintain what you have. And if we don't work with individuals that are used to living with 5 people in a 1-bedroom apartment or 2-bedroom apartment, or the single mother that can't even see how she's going to be able to save enough to put a down payment because she's too busy trying to feed her 4 children and work 16 hours a day. It's a process. And it takes time. But in reference to this home ownership, and I hope some folks is out there listening, because now is the time to be a part of this type of development for our communities. It didn't just happen. It's been happening for years. It's the mindset. What do you want? Are you so busy with everything else that's just not for you? And that's Newark's here. There's not so much they can do. The city is here. There's not so much they can do. But if it's already happened and there's nothing new under the sun, what is stopping us from going around seeing land that's available? And I'm telling them, you've got to build something to leave a legacy of some sort. Of some St. James. Look, 440 Washington was St. James Towers forever. Pilgrim is going to be Pilgrim forever. Oscar Miles going to be Oscar Miles right on the Lippman until they take these things down. They are legacy housing sites. They all have their issues. But they're like, what are we going to do, listening audience, as we go forward regarding, I should say, the development, but making sure we utilize what Invest Newark has to offer to benefit on many levels. I heard y'all talk about Youngblood, and listen, I know Youngblood, and I know New Pastor Butts, God rest his soul. You know, these are some great, awesome, phenomenal men of God. So is Flake, so is C. Wright, so is Bishop Rudy V. Carlton, so is Pastor Ali. You know, so Reverend John Tebow, God rest his soul. He built all those houses on 18th Avenue. You know, so we've got preachers that did it in Newark. Yeah,
I totally agree with you, Roundtree. We want to be respectful of course, our guests' time. We're past their time, but yeah, we're past.
Oh Lord!
But I do want to just say that at some point, Brother Marcus, I would love to pick that conversation up with you, and perhaps have that in a men's conversation that the mayor does around, you know, because you know, you probably might be aware of this too. His father did something back in the day that he called community housing, and you know how they support people back in the day, and they got together and they bought the houses on a particular block, and they began to rent those houses out to those people at what's called affordable today is not necessarily affordable to the people today.
That's right.
Low income, right? So, but that's what his father did. And so around that idea you're talking about, and around the idea that Butts and Johnny Ray Youngblood did in Harlem and in Brooklyn, you know, with what you're talking about, man, I would love to have that kind of conversation with the men's group that the mayor does, and then pull in the reverends and the churches, and let's get to work, man, in terms of trying to make sure that, you know, our people in the city of Newark don't get priced out by what's being called, or at least what we hear all the time, is the LLC boys. But thank God for the city council that Roundtree now sits on, has made it a law in our city that they can't hide no more. They got to know who they are.
But you know, Ed,
Roundtree, we want to be respectful of their time. So
let them go. But let me just say this: when you start making statements about new conversations the mayor has been saying this. You just can't stop saying it. The mayor's been saying it since he had his very first men's meeting. He can't stop them from coming. You can't stop the LLC boys from coming. But what are we going to do? And there's some people that have bought. There's some people that bid, and they're building.
But
they're building affordable. They got youth build.
That's why I'm saying thank God for Marcus, right? Because he can come and help
be
bring
more consistent.
Right.
Conversation.
We've been talking about in those men's meetings, Marcus. You just laid it out. Let's do it. Right. Let's get it done. Our unity can make that happen. So we want to give you and Andrea the last word. And thank y'all for coming, brother.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure to be here. You know, there's a lot that we can do collectively. I really believe that we have countless examples that it can be done. And we have to learn from that and put folks together.
That's right.
You know, make sure we check our egos, and we're all moving toward the same place. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And I'd like to just add that we spoke about like the business development and like the big picture stuff, but to the point that was made earlier, for those individuals aren't at that level yet, we do have training classes. And if there's stuff that people are interested in, if we're made aware of it, it's an opportunity that we will be able to get those type of classes to help those individuals as well. So it's not just about what we have, but it's also about what we can offer to help, again, to try to advance the economic development and prosperity in the city.
Well, thank you, Andrea.
Let everybody know. Let them know. Give them your phone number, email addresses for those. I think there's a link for the. Is there a link for the land bank?
Sure. So actually, I mean, just generally speaking, the organization is called Invest Newark. Anybody can go to our website. It's investnewark.org, and we have one number for the entire organization. It's 973-273-1040. And the operator or our receptionist will gladly transfer you to whomever the respective individual is that you need to assist you. So if you're asking a specific question, then our receptionist will then forward you to that person that can help.
Hey,
so
Marcus,
again, the number is 973-273-1040.
And Marcus, our next men's meeting, Roundtree, is September 30th, right?
Yes, it's a breakfast. It's a men's breakfast meeting at the Robert Treat Hotel on next Saturday. I believe it's 10 a.m. You can check with it's 17th Avenue, Office of Violence Prevention. Brother Josiah has the tickets. That if there are any tickets available, because they've been promoting this for a minute.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that Mr. Randolph is aware of the men's meeting, and whatever information those of you who are watching us on Facebook Live you need to contact the Office of Violence Prevention. I will get the number for you in 2 seconds before we end this live.
One last thing before we go, I must do a shameless plug. Restaurant Week is going on right now. It started today. It's throughout the entire city. It's called Newark Restaurant Week, September 22nd through October 1st. So that's 10 days of good eats. Of course, there's plenty of businesses and eateries within the city. But if you grab one of these passports, you can print it out yourself if you go to our website, or you can also grab one if you come down to our office. There's an opportunity for some lucky person to win $1,000 cash if they just visit at least one restaurant in each of the wards, and it's a passport. So they have a sticker representing each ward to say, hey, we went. They apply, or they submit the passport. If their passport is selected, they get $1,000. So I encourage each of you, whether you go to each ward or not, take part in these 10 days of good eats. And hopefully I'll see you around.
All right. Thank you.
An update on the men's meeting. You can contact Josiah Muhammad. The number is 973-424-4235. That is 973-424-4235. 4235 for tickets for the Mayor's Men's Breakfast Meeting September 30th at 10 a.m. They have a guest speaker, Charlemagne. The guy is supposed to be there. That is the speaker for that event.
All right. Marcus, again, thank you so much, my brother, for making time
Absolutely.
to talk to the community. Thank you. And Andrea, my cousin, love you. Congratulations. Right. I know Marcus is going to treat you right. He's going
Yes,
to give
he
you
is.
all the latitude. And y'all know that we love Invest Newark and we support all that y'all do. Anytime y'all need to come here and talk about anything, you know, the door is always open. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you,
so
guys.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you so
joining
much.
the Disciples. I know you'll be back. I don't know you'll be on the Disciples, but I'm so sure Ed Riley, Brother Ed, will be having you back on All Politics and Local. Number one. America's number one hip hop talk show. Love you guys.
Peace.
Well, that was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. I think that's, you know, and it is really not enough time to talk about Brother Ed. Hi, beautiful Sister Kim. I saw her face earlier in the show. The beautiful and brilliant other side of you that makes you look good. I think this is good for the people, and there's never enough time to talk about.
It really isn't.
Talk about you can't, 30 minutes. Look, we give the public 150 minutes to talk to us in 5 minutes apiece. And some of them say the same thing in the council meeting. So thank you once again, Brother Ed. I just want to make this last announcement. Of course, on October 19th, we will be hosting, this will be the 10th annual the Newark Interfaith Alliance Breakfast. It went up for 8 years. It was hosted by myself as the Mayor's Office of Clergy Affairs rep, but now it's being hosted by myself as council person and the mayor on October 19th at 9 a.m. at the Robert Treat Hotel. Our guest speaker will be Pastor Donnie McClurkin. Of course, it's an interfaith breakfast, so Father Ed and many of our faith leaders from across the city will be participating. If anyone's interested, it's limited seating. This is not the Prudential Arena. It's limited seating. It's 9 a.m. in the morning, 973-733-3794 if you're interested in attending the Mayor's Breakfast, 10th Annual Newark Interfaith Alliance in collaboration with the Newark Interfaith Alliance.
And what date is that again?
October 19th.
October 19th.
I will be in Atlanta at Full Gospel, but we'll be praying for you.
I already know who had. Listen, and some of them done came and got tickets to give to their friends already. They was at my meeting yesterday. They was like, "Can I get 10 tickets?" I said, "But you ain't gonna be here." He's like, "I got some people who want to come." So that's not worried about. Listen, that's the Dr. Taylor said. When you look in a room, this was during COVID. He said, when you look in a room, don't worry about who didn't show up. Thank God for who's able to be there. So that's. I'll be praying for those who's not, and thanking God for those who were able to, and thanking God for those who are praying for us. They wish they were there but couldn't be. Amen.
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 Any last words, Brother Ali?
No, just peace and love, man. It's good to be back on the scene, and glad that I'm alive and kicking, and y'all not talking about me in memory.
Well, you look strong, brother. You looking strong.
Hey,
He's real strong.
Yeah,
God is good, and my wife takes good care of me.
Well, listen, man. We thank God for you, and we thank God, for Sister Ali. We appreciate God for sparing you, brother.
Amen.
And we got work to do, right? It ain't over, man.
Yes, sir.
So we got a lot more to do. So
He's got so much to do. There's an artist named Rich Talbot that sings this song, Isn't He Beautiful? Right? And Rich Talbot says in a part of this song, as long as you're alive, there's more to do. As long as you're alive, just remember there's more for you to do. With that being said, one more announcement. Citywide Artists Against Violence concert Auditions will be held Monday, September 25th, and Tuesday, September 26th. This is being hosted by the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery. Brick City Peace Collective will be Newark Symphony Hall, and of course, our Mayor, Raz J. Baraka. It will be held at Central High School, 246 18th Avenue. This is Citywide Artists Against Violence concert auditions. These are the auditions. They're looking for rappers, singers, dancers, bands, and poets. Mark the calendars, September 25th and Monday and Tuesday. We love you, Brother Ed. We miss you, Minister Haqq Muhammad. I know Brother John is not here. We're a couple of minutes over. Brother Deshaun is on the scene. I don't see his camera because he's on the camera. Brother Ed, we love you. We love you. Love you.
We love you.
The disciples are grateful for you allowing us this time to speak to the public and to the community at large on the All Politics on Local, number one, America's number one hip hop talk show.
Well, we thank y'all for coming on tonight and doing y'all show. Thank y'all so much.
God bless.
We'll see y'all next week. Next month.
Next week? Oh, okay.
Next month.
That was a Freudian.
You know, you're welcome anytime, but we'll see y'all with the disciples next month.
Yes, sir.
All right now.
Thank you. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. Shalom. Shana was last Sunday. Shalom. All
right, now let's go on and welcome another our other guests into the building, and you know, so you want to do the honors, Brother Dashawn?
Respectfully speaking, Ed, I wasn't giving our sisters Bayou, so I don't want to mess it up. I wasn't giving her Bayou, but I know who she is.
So I was told that our sister is a social worker. Her name is Love Gaillard. Is that how you pronounce it? Love Gaillard. And we're going to talk with her about the MSW. She's going to talk about Parent University, the ABCs of IEP, a resource for every parent who has a child with a disability. So I heard Reverend Rountree said sort of the best way to introduce a preacher is to just let them introduce themselves and tell us what it is that they do and what it is that their program is about.
Well, thank you. First, I want to thank you so much for having me. I see Jonathan Alston is not here, but he's my classmate from Science High back in the day before the Science Park. So, you know, Science High people are all over the place. You can't go anywhere with Newark without running into a Science High person. It's a beautiful school legacy. I'm so blessed to have gone to that school. And, you know, Roger Leone is from Science High, that whole crew there. Yeah, yep. So, my name is Love Gaillard. Thank you so much. I'm from Newark. I love to tell people 440 Elizabeth Avenue, apartment 18A. I went to, yes, Elizabeth Avenue, Weequahic Park, Peshine Avenue, Science High School. I went to school in the South, and I left because I ran from Newark and because I thought it was dangerous for my life. But then when I was there for a while, I realized, my people don't know the things I learned here. I'm going back home. And so I came back home, did some things, and I got my master's in social work and started working at Newark Public Schools as a child study team social worker. What is that? I didn't even know what it was when I was referred to the job. So
it was a child what?
Child study team social worker, specialized social worker. I didn't even know my sorority sister referred me there, and I said, okay, fine, I'll go. And so after 18 years now, I am honored to serve the students in Newark and their families, students who have disabilities on all different levels I've worked from pre-K through high school. I'm currently working with the Newark Vocational High School, which is a renewed school, the old Montgomery. I believe, and it was various different things in Newark Vocational. We have their culinary arts, graphic arts, and hospitality and tourism. It is a beautiful renewed school. Please come and visit. They do catering. They host community events. Reverend Rountree is often in our building. It's a beautiful place to be. So what do I do with the Child Study Team? The Child Study Team is a federally driven title, which is recognized across all 50 states. And we serve students who have disabilities. How do we serve them? We case manage. We help develop their individual education plans. So I'll be doing a workshop coming up called the ABCs of the IEP. Because as you could imagine, you never heard these terms before. And even the parents who are involved in it, they're so confused. And even though they go to the meetings, it's so over their heads. And so I've developed a knack of doing workshops. And my brother here has seen me do speaking engagements and things. So I make it easy. Remember those books, you know, like Computers for Dummies, this and that for dummies. So I wouldn't call anyone a dummy, but this is the ABCs of the IEP. It's the IEP explained for people who need it plain and simple. When I was first trained, they told us to, okay, you learned all this stuff, but now when you talk to parents, you have to make it simple. And I took that to heart. And I was honored to be, my first assignment was Shabazz High School. My first thought was, oh my God, what is my assignment? I knew it was an assignment. When I got sent to Shabazz, I said, this is an assignment. And they blessed me. The children.
And let me ask you a question. What does IEP stand for?
The Individual Education Plan. Students with IEPs all learn differently, like every child. But when they have a disability, it's even deeper. It's more specific. And we study the way they learn. I work with a multidisciplinary team. I'm a social worker. We have psychologists. We have learning consultants, which are graduated special ed teachers that go get more credentials. I work with speech and language consultants, occupational therapists, physical therapists. We all work together and we study one child at a time. We study everything about how they learn. It's an incredible process. It's a brilliant process that was developed. The special ed laws were only developed in 1975. So those brilliant people who put this together, I just owe them my whole life because this job has enhanced my life. It's a lifestyle doing this job. And it's an honor when you can, and then, you know, a lot of times, most of these jobs were coveted and held by white people. You know, when we were in school in the 70s and 80s, you know, it was all white people. And it was really hard to navigate with people not from your community who didn't really know you well. So I also am doing this job so I can be a representation on a clinical level for our people. Well, I'm happy to report that the landscape has changed in Newark. It's highly diverse. If you would see the seat of my department with all these masters, you have to have a master's to start, but many of us have masters and PhDs, all Black and brown people, Black and Latino men and women. You wouldn't even know these brilliant people. We are behind the scenes because our job is confidential. It's protected by HIPAA. So it's not something that we can announce and say, I do this and that, you know. So it's something that we do behind the scenes. And we hold these families up. We help drive children with Down syndrome and autism, some of the roughest disabilities, to a place where they can hold jobs, where they can take care of themselves, help their parents to be stable and confident. You know, so it's us, the case managers. It's our job to always transition, support, uplift, and protect the federal law from other educators. We protect them from principals. We protect them from the superintendent. We ensure that we always remind them of their rights. And we get in a lot of trouble. There's a whole lot of battles that goes on behind the scenes because it's sensitive. And as you know, it's highly discriminative, if that's a word. You know, people don't understand that they should be taken care of very gently, specifically, and it's expensive, you know, for the district. So sometimes, many times, we have to fight to ensure that these students are treated fairly, that they are included in all things. And so the wonderful thing also, I'm involved in a great inclusion program. What does that mean? That means that, remember back in the day, the special ed program was on the 3rd floor, or kids went to a special school. Well, in Newark, to include children has been going on for about 2 decades. But in Newark, since I've been here since about 2008, we've been trying and we're doing great. So at Newark Vocational, we include the students who have special needs. We include them in the general ed curriculum. We have, in those classes, we have 2 certified teachers in each of those classes, a general ed teacher and a special education teacher, and some paraprofessionals, so that we can surround the child with services and support in the general ed curriculum with grade level curriculum, so that they can be exposed and grow. And they do grow. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, of course, and this isn't for me and Brother Ed, this is for our audience. Yes. Now, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, over nearly 40 years ago, wrote the book Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Males. And he mentioned the likelihood of Black children, Black boys in particular, being classified as learning disabled, and when they are, quote, learning disabled, they're treated a certain way as opposed to white children, the Asian children. Do you still find this to be the case in this day and time, 40 years later?
Absolutely. It's been 40 years, but it's only been since 1975 that laws have been created to protect all children. And then we're still working in a system that's highly discriminatory in every area, everywhere. But I'll have to say in Newark, we are a chocolate city. That those type of things don't happen in Newark, right? In other districts, I'll just say at Maplewood, South Orange, they have a reputation from having a hard time with working with students. The thing is, as we know, Black boys are different. Our Black boys need rites of passages program. A lot of times it's not that they're disabled, it's that they're misunderstood. Right. So when I first started the job, I had explored a PhD to explore the reasons why children are classified. There's 14 classifications. You can look online. What are the classifications for disabilities? There are 14. And one of them is specific learning disability. You know what that is? Specific learning disability means we don't know what's wrong with the kid. They were not born with a disability. They don't have neurological problems. We don't know exactly what's wrong, but they are functioning various grade levels below what they should be. And in my observation, what's going on is usually poverty, is usually lack of exposure, is usually parents who might be dropouts or just are not, I don't want to say educated, but just very unaware about the school system. And they're underexposed, meaning many children go to preschool and they have libraries and books at home. A lot of our children don't have books at home. They don't have calculators. They don't have rulers. They don't have dictionaries. They don't have, used to have encyclopedias. They don't have internet or laptops. They're all working off their phones at home. And so you have this kid who's not being spoken to with a grand vocabulary and been exposed, from birth to 5 or 7 years old when you take the kids to the park and to the library and to the zoo. And you know how we do, we take the kids places, but a lot of our kids in Newark don't go anywhere until they get to school. And so now they're in school sitting next to kids who've been to the library, who go to the park every other day, who have been to parties and all the type of things which build rich language. And so now you have the student who he's behind. So when they get to preschool, what do? They get classified by the time they're in kindergarten because there's nothing else we can do but give them extra support. And extra support comes from classifying them. So classification was a dirty word because in the early days, of course, they overclassified Black kids. Of course they did. But now we're healing from that. And now, because we are the study team, the child study team, and we have many, many, many Black clinicians everywhere, we come to find that it's lack of exposure and also being transient, moving around a lot. So I hold my ground when I go to what they call an identification meeting to see when a parent says, I think my kid has a disability, or a doctor or someone says, observe this kid. And if they're 7 years old and they've moved 4 times and been to 5 schools, I will not sign on the classification dotted line. I will not. I say, get this kid stable, see if he'll be stable this school year, and let's see how he does. So many of us now take that position where we say, let's get them stable. Let's help support their family. Let's get their parents some services where, Dr. Brother DeLacy Davis, Dr. DeLacy Davis now, he works within the system of care now. He's the director of the Family Support Organization. So the state of New Jersey is doing a lot of things behind it. There's no reason why any parent is lacking knowledge only for not knowing or asking. So his is the Family Support Organization that we refer to. So we find that the child is having trouble, we refer them out to the CMO, the Care Management Organization. The partner is the Family Support Organization. And so we support the family. We give them training. We send them to workshops. We clean their house. They send them for cleaning services, training services. They get an extra assistant. They drive them to the doctor, make sure they have insurance. And if, a lot of parents lose it because of that old recertification stuff. And, it's a lot of red tape. They help them with the red tape. So while that's going on, now we can educate the child. We got the child stable.
So I just have to ask you, Ed, I just wanted to ask, I didn't want to hog up the discussion.
I'm listening. I'm answering. Yes.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you also provide, if I heard you correctly, counseling services for Black teachers and administrators.
Well, unofficial counseling. So yes, everyone comes to our office. The child study team, we have an open door. And let me tell you, sometimes we can't get our work done for the staff coming.
Well, what I'm asking you is this. Now, okay, you may not be aware of this, but Brother Ed knows this. My cousin is Principal Baruti Kafele.
Ah, yes, okay.
So, and I'm not saying that the name drop, but from the
I didn't know that was your cousin. You know, we know each other, yes.
Yes, ma'am. But from the time I was in high school, when he was just a school teacher, Baruti was always giving me tips like, "Yo, Dash, if you ever decide to become a teacher, you got to deal with this as if you're a revolutionary black male or black teacher." What I'm asking you is,
hey, Dasha, why are you talking so deep?
I'm trying to imitate him.
I'm gonna tell
this is me, brother. This is
that's how you talk.
Voice. He's got the bass.
Yeah, that's how you would talk. I told you
I know.
I'm 15 years old and I'm driving with him because Kafele was like, he was like the big brother I never had. So we be driving together. Dash, you ever decide to become a teacher, man? Black men like us, bro. You got to,
That's
what I'm asking. So I had to ask Love now. Please give us a snapshot of what black teachers like yourself or black administrators like yourself experience in this day and time.
Well, again, Newark is a chocolate city.
Yes, ma'am.
And we don't have the problems other districts might have where we have problems with power and control. It's black and brown. Our superintendent is Puerto Rican from down neck, okay, from higher court, okay, right? So all of us come with that. I'm from 440 Elizabeth Avenue. Everybody will rep their neighborhood. We got number streets. It's highly represented in Newark. It's high representation of Newark. Now, recently, we've had another huge influx of others who are coming for these jobs because Blacks are not going to teaching colleges, but it's still, we hold the power right now in Newark. So, for example, last year I had a little problem with a Karen. And when we had to sit at the table, the principal was a black woman, the vice principal was a black woman, and the lawyer at labor relations was a black man. His clerk is a black woman. So Karen just couldn't win. So we don't have that issue in particular. Now, speaking about groups, now there's still a little thing with male and female and stuff. Black women being seen as angry and harder and you got to dance. And there's a lot of dancing, but that's just politics in general with power and control. Any level, anywhere you go, it's going to be a dance, male and female energy, who's high, that's going to happen. But as far as racism and being having a hard time educating and doing your job because of your race, is not a problem in Newark. We are welcome. We are partners. We stand shoulder to shoulder with everyone. Race is not it. The only thing is now we didn't say nothing about petty, so petty stuff happened. But petty is not racism. So I can't speak to the other districts. I hear my ear is to the wall. Some Blacks are still going, the only Black teacher in their whole school. You would have to talk to them. But to be genuine, I'm in a chocolate city. I feel supported. I feel comfortable, supported in the way that I'm Black, but the other things that happen, it has nothing to do with race. Our issue is a lot of petty stuff going on in power, power and posturing and ego and stuff. That's bigger than racism in Newark, so now we are protecting the Black boys now and girls. We're not classifying as much. There's a big push to examine. So if anyone says that kid should be classified, I had a principal one time, she said, "Look at him, don't he look special?" She was from another class of people, right? And I sat there and looked at her. I said, "I will not be able to have this conversation with you in front of the child." I was able to do that. And she had to leave and take the kid back. And then I did my job. So we have the power to do. There's nothing you can do. Well, she tried it, But I'm a vice president for the union, the Newark Teachers Union, and I've been a union rep in the building. I'm also serving as the union. The union, not a club, but it's the union committee in my building. And I've gotten to this position because I've always stood my ground for protecting the rights of children and my coworkers and myself. So not me. I'm not the one. Because I do have, by the grace of God, I have the courage to do this job and to stand. And, early in my career, I got harassed by some petty stuff. But in my mind, you will not put me out of my city. These are my people. And when they come and see me, they are happy. They call me boo-boo, honey love, baby doll. They call me
brazen. Brazen.
And the thing is, I code switch with them and I speak their language and they love it. Because they know I see them. Everyone wants to know, do you see me? Thank you, Felicia. She said, love does it all. That's my coworker. She just went, she's a supervisor of guidance in Orange. We got Fitzhugh out there, Fitzhugh's from Newark. We are doing the business. It's just like the revolution will not be televised kind of thing in this area. So, you know, we're here and we are representing, and we have people, even our president, John Abagon, I give him a shout out. He's an old, you know, from the old boys club, but he's down with us. He's always protecting Black and brown children all the time. He just asked me the other day, I hope I'm not overstepping. I might be a little bit letting the cat out the bag. He said, Love, what do you think about a lot of these white teachers that came in? We got a lot of white teachers that look like they ain't never been around Black people before. And he said he interviewed one and they had never, not even their service workers were Black. He said, what do you think about that? So I hope that we can continue that conversation to start having some workshops, union-based workshops to educate teachers who come from other communities about the Newark community. So yeah, we're progressive. Newark, the Newark Union and Newark School District sets trends, actually.
You know what, Ed, I'm going to say this here. This sister definitely isn't who Howard Cruz is speaking about in Crisis of the Negro Intellectual.
Right.
You see,
no,
he definitely wasn't talking about Sister Love.
No. Sister Love, I want to say a quote to you, and I want to ask you, you know, what do you think about that particular quote? It comes from the same book that was referenced by Dashawn, The Conspiracy to Destroy Young Black Boys, right? Juwanza Kunjufu. He quoted in this book, he says, we love our sons and we raise our daughters. What does that mean?
Ooh, right? Thank you for asking. I love being on these platforms. I'm so grateful to be invited because my perspective is different. Not so much that people don't agree or have the same. I have the courage to say it, you know? And so now I have the experience to speak on it, you know? So we raise our daughters and love our sons. Yeah, I'm gonna take y'all back. Can I take y'all back?
Come on.
A lot of our culture in America is based on the behaviors of the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, and how we were treated. So think about it. A boy or a man was killed in front of his family, right? His nose was split, his foot was cut, and they brought his family out. They brought his mama. They brought his wife to watch, right? And so you know how it goes. You do a thing so long, you don't know why you do it.
Right.
So these mothers are protecting their sons from the community. They're loving on them, but no one knows why they do it anymore. That's why. And so they raise their daughters because we are the cradles of civilization and we go and do it and get it done. And we need instruction. We are women. Those moms are women instructing their girl children on what to do. They can't instruct their boys on what to do. The fathers left, you know, I'm not going to get into that. The fathers have fallen. We're in a rough paradigm shift of living right now where a lot of men are afraid to take their position. And so they have left the families for whatever reason. So the mom is there to raise both, you know? And so subconsciously, but through genetic memory, these women are protecting and loving on their sons and making sure their daughters get it right. Because ain't nobody going to take care of you but you, baby girl. That's what they're really saying. But no one knows the reason why. We're just pointing fingers. It's simple to me because I read. Because I believe spiritually the ancestors are with me, and I've always been prone to reading this history and just knowing things and putting all the things together. You know, brothers, y'all read. You know how we read a lot, right? And when you read it, you put the puzzle together because there's so much to know. Yeah. So you read about Black women in antiquity. You read about Ivan Van Sertima. They came before Columbus. You read about the souls of Black folks. You read the Malcolm X, and you read Heart of a Woman by Maya Angelou, and just all these things, right? I went a span, right? And then to me, I have a must-read Black book list. Once you read all that, damn, what do you do with it? Now you read 7 Strategies of Highly Successful People, Getting Past No from Confrontation to Cooperation, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know, so now you gotta, once you learn it all, now you gotta learn how to finesse it all. Many are not doing that, but consciousness is rising. You know, and I teach another class, social and emotional learning. And right now I'm at the library teaching social and emotional learning with the 4 agreements. I'm enlightening souls, and it's only 2 sessions in, and it's so deep. These are souls. They were drawn to the class merely by the title, because consciousness is rising and people are wondering why. And they're trying to find out, why are we like this? Why do I feel like this? Why do I think like this? And so everything goes back to studying the history of the psychological history of the development of the Americas. Right? Yeah.
I got to tell you, my sister, I've never heard anybody break it down that way. And
I'm ready.
No, listen, you know what? I think that made perfect sense when you said that, they're protecting their sons because it is coming from a slave mentality. Remember Dr. Jerus, when she talked about post-traumatic slave syndrome.
That's right.
You talk about
Joy DeGruy, yeah.
I just mentioned her. That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about that, we're acting from that particular place.
And we don't know why. It's just now it's just a habit of being. It's kind of like, you tie the elephant to the tree when it's a baby. When it's grown, you take the chain off, but they'll stay by the tree because they don't know anything else but staying by that tree. Yeah. And the thing is, sometimes we get so strong-willed, we will fight you on that's not it. It's this and that. Men just ain't crap. Women just need to get their stuff together. No. We are all reacting and responding and living like this because we have yet to start thinking about what we think about. And we have yet to start asking ourselves, how did I get to think this way? Where did my mindset come from? So that's why I said mindset is consciousness is rising, because you have more people now questioning those things. Why am I like this? Where did I get this mindset from? Right. And it's over like, don't act like that in front of white people. Don't trust white people. Don't do, like we act like slaves. Our grandparents were still like one generation from slavery. We're literally I'm 50 as well. I'm one generation from slavery, maybe two, but one good one, because my grandmother's mother was a slave or right out of slavery. So we're not too far removed where those mindsets are not traveling with us to protect us. Gator bait, Florida, they was throwing babies in there in little cages to catch, so you had to protect your babies because somebody might steal them and kill them or eat them. This is real stuff here. But you can't, people who don't read think that this is nonsense. My old auntie told me, my auntie lived to be 97, Miss Eugenia Gaillard, rest her soul. She was a career nurse and held down a brownstone until the day she died, right? She said to me one day, I finished college, she said, you know what's wrong with you? I said, what? In my head, what's wrong with me? I was just on my way out. She said, you read all them books, got you confused. So now we have that mindset to contest with.
But how do we, right? Like what you're saying, I see to be the absolute truth, right? But how do we help our sisters, sort of push back from that kind of mindset in order to allow these young boys to become, grown men in a sense where they're not necessarily clinging to their mothers, but they're allowed to grow. Now don't get me wrong. I understand if they don't have certain skills to be able to go out into the world and be able to negotiate their lives and not get into fights and not end up dead and all of that. But your mother's not always going to be with you. So how do we help our sisters get away from that kind of mindset and allow, and like you said, a lot of the fathers are not there, but there are like the Nation of Islam. You don't necessarily need to be a Muslim. They will allow you to come into their FOI class and learn how to be a man and learn that kind of military training. How do we get our women to begin to let them boys grow up and be men and learn how to operate in the world? And I'm saying that to you as a queen. How do we do that without, some tug of war or some crazy fight with our sisters? How do we do that?
Well, my dear brother Edward, you did speak on this one piece. We cannot do it alone. Our men are emotionally in trouble. At the same time, while all this is going on, I don't know if you've noticed online, men are speaking up and saying, no one's listening to me. Women don't care about my feelings. I've been hurt a lot. Men are starting to admit they don't have a emotional place to go. They don't have friends that they can bond with. And so this is a team effort. We are meant to be a team. Every dog has a mate, right? Every cow has a mate. Every fox has a mate. Every bird, even insects have mates, right? How can we put all that pressure on a woman when everything that's living has a mate? Even plants have a male and female function. It's the balance of the world. We're off balance, brother. And it won't happen alone. It cannot. We have you all, like you said, FOI. I didn't even know the FOI. FOI need to make some flyers and put on the internet. How about that? You know, if that's what happens, they need to publicize and make a commercial on the public access TV and say, we take non-Muslim boys, bring them here, we're gonna hook you up. I never heard that in my life, and I'm a learned, scholar woman, and I'm down with the Nation of Islam and all that, and I never heard that you can bring your sons for their rites of passage. Let's start there. Let's the FOI, you all involved FOI, make flyers, put it out there. Come to our schools. Years ago at Shabazz, I sat with Dr. DeGory. She came to She came to Shabazz, and I traveled with her for 2 days. It was a wonderful experience. And in that time as well, a brother Muhammad, I forget their names, they came and did a men's program. It was phenomenal. I still have the video. They made a video with the boys, and that was great. And the only reason why I had to stop, because the pettiness in Newark schools at the time, a new administrator came and I couldn't navigate freely. So I had to just dead it for myself, my sanity. That's the shit that happens too. We survive at the schools. You know, it's our sanity that's challenged because of the pettiness. Like pettiness, it interrupts progress. But anyway, I digress. So the women, we need the men simultaneously to be working with us. We need to, Dr. DeLacy says he's on a Facebook group and he's always counseling men. You know, they're ashamed because men are taught to not cry, that's weakness. You know, don't show weakness, be a stud, you know, bet as many women as you can. There's a documentary, and write this down. You'll see it on the internet. It's a master's level documentary that you still have to buy. My time is over a bit. It's called Tough Guys, like a disguise, Guise, Tough Guys. And it's a documentary that that travels the history of the socialization of men through American media. I'm just saying, put a period right there, okay? And when I was in grad school, it taught me, I'll just give you this one example, and then please go, guys, look it up. There's one example. When girls are little, they are given baby dolls, taught to be moms. They're taught to chat with their girlfriends and have tea parties. They have a fake kitchen to cook and all these nurturing things. Boys, at the very same time, they're given wrestle men, dinosaurs, Mack trucks, no socialization. They want to damage, destroy, be strong, and that's it. And then they turn 18 and you want them to marry. Why don't you get married? Why you keep messing up your relationships? Because there's no education to teach us how to be compatible with each other, to love each other, to say, this is how you treat a woman, this is how you treat a man, this is how you engage. We supposed to just get it by watching? I didn't have a healthy family in my life. I'm still not married, and I'm reconciling with that, you know, because I didn't do it because I knew I didn't know. So I wasn't going to make that big mistake because I knew it could ruin your whole damn life. So I'm one of the casualties of our generation where I chose to not participate because it was scary. I didn't participate. I wasn't getting that deep. I ain't going to destroy my life, you know. But, you know, we need each other, and we're in trouble. It's a huge paradigm shift that occurred through the late 70s, through the crack era, AIDS, gangster hip hop, and now here we are.
Well, let me tell you this, sis. We're out of time. But we definitely need to have you back, right? Because I think that there's a place where I think, you know, you're going, you know, because one of the things, we produced a mayor's show here too, called the Mayor's Forum. And one of the things he talks about all the time is the level of heaviness that is on young Black males in the city of Newark. And you know, I would love to delve into that conversation based on your background a little further, and kind of get into that conversation. So I'm gonna talk to John about maybe having you back and maybe extending your time and see if we could just really just get together a group of other people and then have this conversation based around relationships and based around, you know, boys being raised by their mothers and not being allowed to grow up and be men. So we got a question we need to ask you before you leave that we ask everyone. And so we are a hip hop political radio talk show that produced out of Rutgers University when we're in the studio. What are you currently listening to from hip hop at this point? Not talking rap, but I'm talking hip hop. What are you listening to? What motivates you?
I'm excited right now because it's the 50th year anniversary of hip hop, and I've been going to parties and stuff and concerts. I know you know, I just found it last week, the new radio station, 94.7 The Block.
That's right. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Oh man, that's like easy listening for the 50-year-old, you know. So today I was listening to the Lost Boys. Woo! I'm a throwback queen. I don't listen to
They came out when I was in high school, 95.
Yeah, right.
That album, when I graduated in 95, 96.
Was in the Benz.
I see you year, 95, 96.
Keep your head up into the hoods. East Coast, West Coast, and worldwide. I had that on replay today. So I'm an old school throwback person. It was the Lost Boys today. It was a little bit of Biggie, you know, and so like that. But if I can make a closing statement, thank you for asking. I love hip hop, but 94.7 The Block. If you don't know it, get to know it. And you can listen to it live at your desktop or on your phone. It's easy to listen to it. It loads easily. But my final statement, if you would allow me to make, is I have working with Kalina Berryman, we introduced Newark to this concept. Is called social and emotional learning. As you can see in my background, that's wheel right there, over there.
Right.
I want you to look it up. Please look up social and emotional learning. Please look it up, right? It is basically a process through which we help children and adults understand their emotions and how to navigate themselves and the world around them. It's a game changer. I've been teaching it 5 years now to a couple of hundred classes. It's a breakthrough for every human being. And I believe we can start there, because it's a conversation-led workshop series. And what it does is helps people to let go and to become anew and gain new perspective in a safe environment, non-judgmental, and we help them not to feel guilty and afraid as they grow. It's a beautiful, not only am I doing that thing with Parent University for the ABCs of IEP, I'm simultaneously right now in the process of a 10-week series with the Newark Library. And I'm teaching social emotional learning with this book called The 4 Agreements, which matches nicely. And I believe this social emotional learning also can be a prerequisite for anti-racism teachings for people who need to let go of their old thinking. This thing is a game changer for every human. It's being taught all over the world right now.
Yes, it is.
Well, listen, expect to hear from Jonathan, and I'm going to reach out to Kalina and look to have both of you come back, and let's delve into what you just shared just now. So thank you so much for being on with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here.
Thank you so much. It's a high honor. Thank you, guys. I had fun.
Thank you.
You're a bad sister. You're a bad sister, love.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Black power.
All right, now we're going to jump into our next conversation with our sister and welcome our brother to the show. So we want to welcome Quentin Walcott of Connect New York City and Lethy Liriano. Am I pronouncing that right? How do you want to pronounce that for me? You're on mute, sister.
Liriano.
Yes. Okay. You know, they took away my African tongue, sister, and gave me this European tongue, so it's a little hard to pronounce my original names, you know. So don't charge that to a brother hard, charge it to that poor education I received. Even though I got these damn degrees, they don't represent the paper they're written on. So thank you so much, my sister. We appreciate you being with us. So we want to talk with them about the 23rd Annual Bridges March. So if we can talk about that, either one of you can start and just kind of share there. But I guess we'll ask the Queen to go first.
I'm sorry. I don't see Lethy here. Is she on the screen? No? Can we let her in?
What's she supposed to be?
She's the niece for Gladys.
Okay.
And if we have to switch places, that's fine.
No. I think. Oh yeah, I see. I think she's in the waiting room. I can.
There she is.
Hello, everyone.
You muted.
Can she hear us?
Hello, can you hear us?
I don't know how to turn the audio on.
You're on.
Oh, hello, Edward.
Hi. Okay. So we were wondering if you could just start us off in terms of what the Bridges March
right.
is about.
The bridges? Did you say the bridges?
Yes.
It's the bride. Bride is a bride and groom. Bride.
Hello.
Hi. I'm processing all the comments that were made a little earlier about all the violence and also just settling in. So nice to meet you. Hi, my name is Lethy. And this show is about hip hop.
Well, no, it's not it is a political hip hop radio talk show, right? So we talk about a whole host of things, from politics to hip hop, whatever is current at the particular time. But what my notes say, what Jonathan left is he said Quentin Walcott of ConnectNYC City, and Lethy, the sister's name I messed up, of the Bridges March, and Kelly Halalindro of Long Live a Butterfly talk about the 23rd Annual Bridges March, Gladys, Richard, and victims of domestic violence moral walk. So, I mean, are you guys, anybody talking about that, or we got the wrong people?
So we are here to talk about it. So we just want to correct a couple of things. So this is the Brides March, as in a bride and groom. It's to honor Gladys Ricard, who was taken from us in the hands of domestic violence by her ex-partner on September 26th, 26 years ago. This is the 23rd year for the Brides March, and we are not only honoring her, but we're honoring any and all domestic violence survivors and victims, and also giving a voice to the family members of survivors and victims of domestic violence. Lethy, who you see is under bridesmarch.com, she is the niece for Gladys Ricard. In fact, she was actually present right next to her when it happened. And Quentin is our speaker today because Lethy is having a call to action for men to join us, since we're going to be having healing sessions at the end of the March for men. Quentin, I guess I can, if you're okay with that, Edward, yield the floor to Quentin.
No problem. Yep.
Greetings, brothers. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, it's an honor to be on your show, and it's great here to be with Kilsy and Lethy. And Lethy is the woman you were talking to earlier, and Kilsy is the woman who kind of broke down the Brides March. So we're really excited to be part of the Brides March this year, with a special call to men to come out and support the women who will be in their wedding gowns marching through Harlem and the Bronx, Washington Heights, and through the Bronx. And it's important that men are involved in this particular issue, because domestic violence or intimate partner violence is really it's really a men's issue, because men are doing most of the violence in relationships. And what we tend to do is we look at domestic violence or intimate partner violence as a woman's issue solely that they have to deal with. So it's important that men get involved, are part of the solutions to end violence in the family, violence in a relationship, and violence in our community, because we do see that all of these forms of violence are connected. So my organization, Connect, is we've been working with men over the last 20 years as part of the solutions to end and prevent domestic violence. So partnering up with the Brides March and all the organizations that support it, it's really kind of in line with our work to really ultimately interrupt violence and prevent violence from happening. So men stepping up and getting involved in this is not even just a great act, but it's crucial to interrupting and ending domestic violence, and really looking at our role and our position in that. So that's why we're making a call for 100 men to join the hundreds of women that come out every single year for the Brides March. And it's a beautiful sight, and it's a beautiful scene, because we're walking through our Black and brown communities. We're walking through, men and women that are in the communities. They're seeing this visual, and they're learning more and more about domestic violence and how we can prevent it from happening, because it is something that is prevalent in all of our communities. We have it in our families. We have it in our own relationships. So we've either witnessed it, we've been harmed by it, or we've actually done the harm as well. So that's why it's important for all of us to come together.
Can you mention some of the organizations? You said hundreds of organizations? Hundreds of women?
Hundreds of women, but these two women here represent the organizations. They can speak to that themselves if that's cool.
I wanted to, may I ask Quentin a question?
Sure.
Quentin, we understand that domestic abuse happens in communities across the world, regardless of race.
Yes.
Of course, as we know. But what we have seen in the past, I'd say nearly decade via social media, it appears that domestic violence is being given a black male face. Do you see that to be the case?
Yeah, I think generally that's part of it. That's why, we have to look at systems and how systems treat black and brown poor folks. And you're absolutely right. When you look at media, it looks like a black brown woman with scars on her face and things like that. And it's also projecting this image of black men and black and brown men committing violence. But like you mentioned, it's domestic violence does not discriminate. The differences are what type of services are available for you. Some people who are of a different class can have different resources that can either it doesn't resolve the issue. It may keep it quiet. It might keep it, private. But the public face of it, in terms of having to deal with police and courts and child welfare systems, that typically, in general, is a black and brown face that's being projected. But in actuality, as many of us know, systems really impact, white people and people of affluence as well, and probably even more so. But again, because of racism systemically, and just into society, it shows this one particular kind of hue to domestic violence, and that is not the case. Many survivors of domestic violence who have organizations like the Brides March, like Dominican Women's Development Center. There's many organizations, VIP Violence Intervention Program. There's many NIMIC, Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporations. There's so many organizations that come together on this day to really want to honor the life of Gladys Ricard and to really expose this issue in a way that people can get the help that they need. Because that is part of it, is that not only getting the word out about what domestic violence is and how it happens and the occurrences, what role men play, but also to get the resources out there to people who need them and understand that they exist. There's folks who struggle with domestic violence who are undocumented. There are folks who struggle with domestic violence, have poor relationships with police. There's folks who deal with domestic violence on a day-to-day basis, but not necessarily know where to go. And the sister, Dr. Love, who was on there, talked about Tough Guys, and that was written by one of my colleagues, Jackson Katz. And there are resources available that really breaks down not just the act of power and control in a relationship, but what is it about society that says it's okay for me to be abusive in my relationship and be harmful, in particular to women, although domestic violence happens in all types of relationships, same sex, LGBTQ, GNC, all types of relationships. But it really kind of breaks down the masculinity, the male socialization that contributes to men being abusive in their relationships, thinking that they have power and control, and they're playing a position of power when it should be, seeing our partners as equals and kind of, living on this world together, and also coming together to resolve these issues of violence in our communities, because we need each other in order to do that.
Yes, for me, I agree that there's a necessity to center humanity in any of the power structures. In the case of gender, a lot of men are in control, both on the political sphere, physically speaking, and men are also socialized to be a protector. When we had a conversation recently, men on the call were asking us, what do I do if a girl is getting beat up and I'm expected to come in and support? Can I see everyone else? It just gives me a little more support. Is that enough? Thank you. Hi. Just that men are also expected to be violent in a situation. Men are supposed to protect. When my aunt passed away, my uncle tried to grab the perpetrator, and I'm sure the trauma and the horror and the fear. I mean, I didn't even want to say fear because I didn't want to diminish my uncle, but yes, fear. There's death in the room. Your children are there. Like my whole family was present. Why was he called to do that? Because he was the man in the situation. And it's like, sometimes it feels like maybe we weren't equipped enough to know that he would have ever come in there and done that to people that he knew for a decade plus, you know. My grandmother, like, he knew my grandma. How could you do that, you know? I know Kilsy can speak to something similar, and her sister passed away like only 2 years ago, and she is here speaking so that maybe another woman won't die, because it really sucks and it's hard. It's hard on men. It's hard on my uncle and my cousins and her colleagues, that she's so beautiful and young and vibrant and successful, died. And then not only died, but that her character, they defamated her character to try to diminish the sentence of the perpetrator, to somehow make it okay that he was surprised or upset about how she moved on with her life when she left him. And when women leave abusive relationships, they are the most at risk of homicide. A lot of people don't know that why doesn't she just leave? She really might die. He's been threatening her life, her children. She's worried, you know, and all the other reasons we stay in toxic relationships, which I'm sure, raise your hand if you've ever been in a toxic relationship. Oh, come on. Yeah. Maybe toxic is a strong word, but, you know, we've all had to learn which are the right boundaries to hold and how to pick a right, good partner. And what are we seeking when we seek love? And we're not talking about how to seek love. I mean, I don't know if that's a conversation you're having at your dinner table. Hey, son, are you seeking love today? How are you doing? You know, I'm still, you know, holding a lot. I had a long day. You know, we've been putting the word out. I went to get some flyers. I'm going to try to go along the route and let people know we're coming through, because it is powerful to come together in person and denounce that this is the tragic end of a lot of Black and brown women in our community. But to your question, Deshaun, the extreme violence in the United States context obviously came from the colonizers of this place, and the violence we've had to witness and accept, and the humanity we've had to strip from ourselves. Really work that's been done by generationally Black African folks that have been here, because Dominicans have migrated mostly after the 1970s to the United States context. I mean, we had our own colonization in DR, but we get to benefit from the civil rights activism of Black people. And that's the platform I stand on today to even be speaking on this issue. And the fact that the first group of men that is putting a call to action is a group of 100 Black and brown men to stand with us, because they understand our pain as Black women, supporting us because we are Black, right? I acknowledge my Blackness and also my placement in the US context of what that Blackness means and how I get to show up. So I'm doing my best to somehow ease my pain through activism, support other families. I met Kilsy because of this movement. I showed up for her in court this month at the sentencing of her sister's case, which justice was it served. I mean, the systems that we need to advocate towards, like the court systems, how we treat families, and going back to humanity, how you welcome me onto this show as a survivor of violence, to know the name of this march, to know my name, those types of things. I feel that humanity is really critical for honoring one another and all the pain that we're in, and like healing. So that's what we hope to, that's why we hope to add elements of healing. That's why we're excited. Men are going to be there. They're leading healing ceremonies. There's a brother, Green Light Warrior, and Baba Zaid, who couldn't be with us right now. We hope he's well. We're going to help lead and direct conversations where we get to acknowledge that we're all humans, that men are human. Men are human.
Yeah. Did you want to add to that? My sister, did you want to add to that?
What I would want to add to that is 100% to everything Lethy and Q have said. Is the sensibility. There's no sensitivity behind how we're approaching survivors and their families. I myself just found out that there was no justice for my sister's murderer. pretty much got away with it. And although I work for Equal Justice USA and I believe in humanity, let's leave it at that because I see it's 7:56. But I believe in inequality. I believe in humanity. When you take a life, when you make the decision to take a life the way that you do, and at this point, I'm speaking as a human. I'm not even going into gender. I'm not going into race. If you feel that you are about to take a life, there has to be another option. I understand the terrible effects that feminism had on Black and Brown.
Wow. I'm sorry.
It is what it is, and I am a female, and I'm saying this because let's look at history. Who created the feministic movement? Who really supports the feministic movement? And yes, women are not honoring our men. I'm gonna go into gender really quickly. Women are not honoring our men the way that we're supposed to, because to Sister Love's point earlier, women are the one being left with all the responsibilities. And can a woman really raise a man 100% the way that society is going to need that man to be by the time he's in the dating scene? We're not sure. This is what we're trying to figure out. And I would love to meet with Sister Love at some point in my life, because what she was saying was ringing bells in my ears. And also, men are not being raised in a way where they are honoring their woman the way that we're supposed to. And so I will go into narrative shifting. We need to change the narrative on how we approach each other. We need to change the narrative on feminism if we're going to go with that. We need to change the narrative on how Black and brown are really going to stick together, regardless of the shade of the brown. Okay, this is past that. Regardless of where we stand on the shade of the brown, how are we sticking together to save lives, whether men, LGBTQIA, or women, and then start moving forward into the deeper trenches of racial equity, of how we're treated, and so on and so forth. I'll stop there.
Do y'all men talk to each other when you're worried about each other potentially bursting out in anger? Like, have you ever met a guy that you thought was almost there and then doing something that surprised you?
Me personally, from the time I was a teenager, I've always been exposed to Black male support groups. I'm 46 years old, so 30 years ago when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 1996. At that time, and we were just speaking about this in the prior segment. Brother Ed spoke about the Nation of Islam with the rites of passage. In Newark, New Jersey, you had Brother Kenyatta in the STEP program. Me personally, and of course, Brother Ed, we were always exposed to Black male support that, where you can go to and literally cry.
Brother Sean, and I agree, there are a lot of spaces for Black males and Latino males. And it's not the thing that we do not talk, it's like what we talk about though. Right. So a lot of it is about talking about our manhood, talking about how we are in relationships, how we are in what marriage means to us, our attitudes around women and girls and other men that might not meet up to the quote unquote standards of masculinity or machismo. So it's important to have all those conversations. And we have this men's roundtable once a week that's kind of centered. And we started it maybe 14, 15 years ago, based on the Chris Brown, Rihanna situation, right? And our first question was out without judgment. Is like, what would you say to Chris Brown after this situation, right? So we started it based on that premise, and we talk about manhood, we talk about relationships, and the most important thing that we talk about, which I think is lacking, and if we don't really grab a hold of this, is accountability, right? And also the fact that men need to heal. Just like Lethy mentioned, we are all like the transatlantic slave trade and how that was a blueprint for power and control, right? Intimate partner violence and domestic violence is the power and control in more of an intimate setting with someone you're in a relationship with. So a lot of the concepts are the same, but how do you hold someone who is doing harm accountable, and also to recognize that we talk about accountability with compassion, because sometimes brothers, I always say the first time they may do something, may not understand or realize that they're doing harm. But at some point, we have to recognize the harm that we're doing, what we're doing, and its impact on women and girls and other men that are in our communities or in our families. And basically, there's a combination of male privilege. I don't have white male privilege, which is the highest form of privilege and probably the most abused historically through society. but I have male privilege even in my own community, right? And what do I do with that? Do I take advantage of it? Do I use it for good? You know, even if I threw it away, it would be thrown right back at me because men and women are born into this society and we're socialized in this particular type of ways. So we have to kind of challenge the status quo about how we're raised and what our positions are, what our characteristics in socialization as men is supposed to be, because a lot of that is very harmful, not only to women, but to ourselves. Living up to that is very harmful.
It's the way, I totally agree. It's the way the systemic racism, the systemic barriers, do you bring that home to your wife as a Black man, the things that you experience in the world where you're not in the power dynamic that's appropriate for our kings? Do you like ease that at home with your family and your wife, or do you like take it out on them, you know? And like, how does a woman hold the responsibility? It's hard to talk about gender, but there are women and there are males, and there's a way we've been structured to be together. And, you know, there's just a recent, incorporation of women even in the workforce, you know, just to say we're not, you know, as the guest was saying earlier, we're not that far removed generationally from the access points that we, you know, have as women. So like I think love eases the way. When you treat a woman great, you know, you get the fruits are plentiful. When you help a woman, you help a whole community, you help the children, you help the elders, you know, and we help our men. What, you know, that's what we all want to do, is help our men, you know, and help one another and help society and give birth and give life. So, you know, it's those little ways we show up to love.
But let me ask all of y'all a question. So if you think about what Sister Love was saying earlier, and we listen to everything we're now talking about, right? And when I asked her that question about what Jawanza Kunjufu said in his book, The Conspiracy to Destroy Young Black Boys, and that quote that he said, where he said that, you know, women, he said, you know, they love this, we love our sons and we raise our daughters, right? So if you're talking about men who, one, cannot control themselves emotionally, right? Because for most of us, we don't have an outlet, right? Men don't, right? We don't necessarily have an outlet. Like women can get together, right? And y'all can emotionally just share yourselves, cry and hug each other and love on each other like that.
Everything.
The society that the society that we are in as men, right? And particularly women who may have raised these boys by themselves, loved on them in that fashion. But when they go into the world, they're being told, you can't cry. You got to be strong, right? You know, you got to accept whatever is going on, no matter what you feel like inside. So when we confront a woman, right, and we're being asked to be men, how can you ask me to be something that I don't know how to be, right? And then when you challenge my manhood because of my own level of embarrassment, right, I act out on that, right? And because of the self-hatred that is in me, I began to lash out at you physically, right? So, you know, one of the things my wife and I talk about all the time is that how before we got together and before we got married, right, we were in relationships before, but we took time by ourselves separately to heal, right? What most people do, and y'all know this is true, right? Because I did this as a young person. What I heard from the men I was with, and brothers, y'all could tell me whether I'm telling the truth. What I heard, sisters, from other men, when you leave one woman, or get right back on the horse, just go date another woman. Now, I never got over what I was dealing with that. And so I'm bringing that same bullshit into the relationship I'm trying to heal, and I'm messing up somebody else who life probably as well, who probably got love for me, but because I don't have that for myself, I'm bringing it to you. What I'm asking you all is that, and I guess what I'm saying about myself, and I said this to another brother who's in this field, you know, how do brothers, how do we get to be in a space with y'all that we can be honest and be vulnerable without you all taking that, right? And I'm saying women, and taking that from us and not seeing us as the men that we want to be? How do y'all do that?
I love that you said that because sorry, go ahead, Quentin.
I'm sorry, Lethy, I gotta push back on a lot of what you said, Brother Edward. I agree that men need to heal, and we got to heal from multiple traumas, right? And even domestic violence in itself. There's PTSD related to relationships and domestic violence, community violence, systemic violence. We all have to kind of deal with that. One of the things that I think is we kind of brothers are blaming women for raising us a particular type of way. But I was raised by a Black woman, single Black woman, divorced, who raised 2 Black boys in New York City, right? And my mother was probably even harder on me in terms of her saying, "Get your ass home at the end of the day," right? Because we have to navigate police, we got to navigate gang violence and all of those things. So it's not necessarily that because of women we are the way we are, right? Because women don't have the same levels of entitlement or power even in our own communities. Like I mentioned, we don't have white male privilege, but we still have privilege that we have access to certain things that the sisters in our lives do not have. So I really push back on this notion that women are the reason the way we are, right? And society is not this mythical thing. Society is made up of us, right? Of men and women. And we think about who benefits most from this construction of society. And we got to be honest about that. It's men. And male violence, if we look at male violence in a particular type of way, part of it is violence against women and girls, but men are impacting other men 3-to-1 compared to women. So we have to be really honest about that. And it's easy to just say, because of sisters and my mom, but moms are raising boys and girls, right? And I think they're doing a decent job, because one of the things my mother did was she taught us to be human. She also said, you're going to have to face this outside as Black boys living in New York City, all these things and challenges around race. And one of the things that men do, we don't realize that women are experiencing race just like we are. And not only that, and I don't want to argue the debate about what gets reported and what gets not. Black men and brown men are sensationalized in media, just like we talked about in terms around domestic violence and who's at face. But the realities are that not only do women in our lives experience racism, they also experience sexism in ways that we do not.
Yeah,
Right? So I just want to make it a fuller picture. It's not like, and I think we do a disservice when we have brothers in our space. And I've been working for men for 20 years around this issue, multiple spaces around clinical to the informal to the community. If we got men in our midst, we have to talk about undoing the harm, and it's generational. Women do harm to men, of course. Mothers have, raised, unhealthy men, no doubt. But then we also have to look at where are the brothers in this, right? And if the brother that is not your biological father, we have to push for other male figures, other examples of manhood, other examples of masculinity that we could draw from, and really approach this as how do we raise healthy individuals, healthy humans? And, we can't exclude gender from the conversation around race and vice versa, or class, right? All these things coexist, but at the core of it is power and control. Somebody's in a position of power, somebody is not. Somebody's fighting to gain or maintain that power, and that's where the problems exist. Men and women are, I think particularly Black and brown women, we cannot afford to be enemies or have enemy consciousness when we got to deal with this internal issue, domestic or private issue, and also see how it's related to all the other systems that we encounter, all the other issues that we have to deal with in society. So I just wanted to say that. But I do agree that we need to heal. We can't really, I think we have no time to blame somebody else for how we are, but to understand where that comes from so we can interrupt it and be healthier as we move forward.
Yeah, I was going to say too that a Black man has been president before a white woman, and we just dropped the whole white woman conversation. So just dropping that in, and women are dying, like getting murdered annually, dozens, all over the country, the world. So there's obviously still a power dynamic between men and women, but also that when I walk by the streets, sometimes I see, to Quentin's point, women are violent too sometimes. Sometimes the young people, I'll see them on the bus or the train and they're like hitting each other, and girls will just like hit guys too. I want to just acknowledge we're all over violent with one another, because to your point, a man's coming to find, just we have to work on this, all of us. Too much violence going on. I'm not sure how the young people who works with young people culturally, but I do see a lot of violence from boys and young girls. That's all picked up in the home in some way. To your other point of questioning your manhood, you mentioned a couple of times. And it's something that reminded me actually when I went to court with Kilsy, that there was something about pride and humiliation as a defense for the crime. And it made me question to myself, what is this manhood that is being questioned? Because I think that's what's at the base of the design that's making men not be able to be human, is that you have to be a man instead of being a human. And so if something that I say is questioning your manhood and you can't regulate yourself because you have to show up as a violent defense of your manhood all the time, we have to unpack that a little.
I wanted to address something. I had this conversation last week. We were discussing, someone had brought it up at the beginning of this segment about if a man sees a woman being brutalized by another man, does he feel that he should be the protector of that woman? And a long time ago, I worked with Tamika Mallory at one time, Justice League, and we had a workshop at the New School discussing domestic violence, public violence, and that scenario was brought up. So what I said that as a man, unless it is my mother or my sister or close acquaintance, I would be very hesitant to jump in. You know why? Because we have many women who suffer from battered women syndrome. And I've actually seen when a woman is getting beat down, when a man jumps in to protect her, the woman being beat at that moment will literally jump on the man's case. Don't you touch him. Leave him alone. But
you've seen that before?
I've seen it, but also something that we also have to look at too. I don't know if that man has a gun. You understand? Yes. That's what we don't talk about. We don't discuss this. But oftentimes when you have women who are with men who they know are crazy or intentionally pursue toxic men, we have to address that issue as well.
So, Sean, I think those are great points. But in context, right? And one thing that we teach and we're going to be doing more of is bystander workshops. How do you get involved without making the situation worse and without doing harm to yourself or being caught up in the midst of it? But some things we got to really recognize and understand. Like, why is that sister jumping in even though you're trying to protect her, right? Number one, we got to figure out what it is that's needed in that moment. Secondly, is that you could jump in now in this moment, but you ain't going home with them, right? An abusive partner's mind is, even though they might be yelling or screaming or being physical on a train station, once it becomes public and other people get involved in it, they're not accountable for their anger or their violence in that situation, maybe down the line. But in that moment, you shift it to because of you, right? Because I'm not accountable for my behavior and I'm blaming you for this whole situation. Now it's public and now it's known. You're getting us in a situation where I could get arrested or something could happen. So a lot of the blame continues to happen, especially when a third party gets involved, because the mindset is, I'm not doing anything wrong here. It's you. Because of you, I'm doing this, right? Blaming you for hitting you or being harmful to you. And that's part of that process. That's why, the men who are struggling in their relationships like that need to go to groups and get help. And that's part of the work that, we do. And we're adding to that. So we have to recognize that she's jumping in because you're not going to be there 24 hours during the day. In that moment, when you leave and the police don't respond in the right way, or police aren't involved at all, when they get home, the violence is going to be exacerbated, right? So we have to put it in context. How can we approach without doing further harm to anyone, and realizing that you're not going to go home with them or you're not going to take anybody home? That's the reality. But there are ways to be involved, and put it on yourself. Like, I'm not comfortable with what's going on. Sometimes you can approach the man who's being aggressive rather than the woman, take it away from her. because he'll see it as you got these other people involved now and take it out on her. Sometimes you can check the brother like, yo, everything was all right, man. It's crazy. You have to deal with that. And, it's strategy in that moment. So you're not, creating a situation where when you leave, the violence is going to get worse. So part of it is just having an understanding of what's going on to realize, why is everybody jumping on me when I'm trying to help? So it's like a fuller context and understanding of those situations. And it's not a one size fits all. If you know the people, different language. If you don't know the people and you feel comfortable approaching the woman, do that. But there's a way of doing that as well. And sometimes approaching the guy as well. Whoever's being harmed or whoever is doing the harm around their gender doesn't matter. But like, who do you feel comfortable in approaching?
But I think it still comes down to, in my mind, and I appreciate all of your comments, my brother. But as Sister Love just said, it is not necessarily the blaming, right? So all of us need to take that out, and I agree with her, right? But we had another brother on who's in this field, and what we talked about is that most people who have because when we talk, we're in Newark, New Jersey, right? And what we find is, and what the mayor talks about here, he talks about most of the violence that occurs in our community is from domestic violence, right? And what he shared a month ago, he talked about the heaviness that is on a lot of the young brothers, right? So you talk about a lot of the mental illness that is real, right? But the problem is, in my mind, is that because you talked about groups and so forth, and the sister just chimed in and she said it's embarrassment. Most of us are embarrassed to tell somebody else that we have an emotional problem, right? We're embarrassed to tell somebody that I'm having issues trying to deal in my own reality, right? But you have to, right? It's about getting help, and that is why I talked about if and it's not necessarily about blaming saying women are the reason that men are necessarily like that. No, what I'm saying is that for us, and I'm talking about brothers, right? For us, it's difficult for me to go and talk to another brother and say, hey, brother, can I really just tell you, man, like, here's where I'm at emotionally, right? And I'm fucked up, man. But I can't say that to the world, right? Because the world is going to judge me. Can I say it to you? And the sister just said we need safe spaces, right? Like if I came to you, brother, and I said, well, brother Quentin, hey man, can I just be honest with you and you not judge me, right?
Absolutely.
And Quentin not take that in a way to say, wow, that brother really fucked up, right?
And I think one of the tools to be a good listener in a moment like that, if a friend comes up to you and says, hey, can I talk to you? I know a lot of guys, from my perspective, they will solve it. They'll be like, you could do this. Here's the solution. Give you answers. And often that's why therapists make a lot of money. I just really kind of need to be heard. I need a space to get it out of my body.
I'm looking for you to stop, and I'm looking for you to hear me right now, right? Yeah. Like help me through it, man. Let me say it so I'm not walking around with it in me. It's hurting me. And so when I try to talk to my woman or talk to, another, I'm lashing out because nobody is giving me a space where I can be safe. If I could come to Quentin and say, hey, Quentin, man, please, brother, just give me an opportunity, man. And you say, brother, go ahead, man.
And let me give you a quick example real quick, right? And number one, we're providing these safe spaces, and they don't have to be clinical. You know what I mean? It could just be like, what is it that you need? You need to vent? Do you need me to respond? Well, and not judge. Like, so every time we do a men's circle or men's roundtable, the first question is, how are you doing?
Right.
We practice it. Everybody goes, everybody talks about it. And what I say is that, because brothers will be like, everything's all right, it's fine, it's cool. I'm like, nah, what makes it cool? Put some emotions to how you're feeling and break that down, right? And then the other thing too is that when I first started doing this work, I did one-on-one interviews in Brooklyn, South Bronx, and South Jamaica, right? We would ask the guys one-on-one, what do you think about domestic violence? Is it an issue? How to resolve it, et cetera, right? One-on-one. these brothers are like, yeah, I witnessed that growing up. I'm struggling with that in my relationship, teen or adult. You know, I don't know what to do. But then when I asked them in a group setting full of men, Brother Deshaun was worried about what Brother Ed would be saying about him for expressing his true feelings about, one, how he's feeling, and number two, how men should step up and curb the violence against women, right? So individual man versus a man in a group are two very different people, because we're worried about what other men will say, not necessarily what women will think about us. So that's about our masculinity and all those things. So we got to provide the spaces to break down that. And what I do is that I model it. You know, I model it so other brothers can see, you know, and I use my masculinity. You know what I mean? I'm what I call middle masculinity. I use that for my advantage to reach other men like me, because they're the ones that we really need to reach, and they can move the needle. So me being an example of, you know, being vulnerable, looking at vulnerable as a strength, not as a weakness, because we're getting caught up in what other men are telling us how to be men. And you got to be tough. You got to be strong. You know, you don't go to the doctor. You know, I'm a victim of that. I go to the doctor when I can barely walk, right? Instead of getting checkups and do preventive work and things like that. So we have to really kind of borrow from sisters who can communicate and how they communicate and not judge each other, because sisters are also communicating with us. And a lot of times, I thought you were going to say earlier, Brother Edward, that men communicate to other women. And sometimes when it's thrown back at them, it creates violence. I thought you were going to get into that, but yeah.
If I can jump in really quickly, if that's okay. I think we also have to start being honest with ourselves, speaking our truth, both men and women. Like you said, Ed, you know, that's your truth. That is a Black and brown man's truth. Ego, being the protector creates most of that. And let's be honest, we are raised in the ghetto. So most of us are. So protection means violence. It is in front of violence. And sometimes you have to get violent. You have to get in a fight just to keep your sneakers on in some of the places that we're raised in. So how do you start? So acknowledging that this is interwebbed, and then how do you start softening things up? This is generational work. And by softening, I don't mean softening the story, just taking all the cobwebs out so we can start separating these two. Equal Justice has an amazing program called Trauma to Trust, which I know that you guys are aware of. And literally, it's taking trauma to trust. This is not going to happen tomorrow. This is not going to happen on September 26th for the Brides March. It is not going to happen at the end of this year. It is generational work. However, there is a glory, there is a blessing in repetition, and so being honest, repeating that pattern of honesty, like to your point, Ed, when we first started, you asked, you know, how do I communicate with my wife or with my spouse, with my girlfriend? Something as simple as, hey, I'm not feeling comfortable, this is not it, can we talk about it? Just stop. Right? Even that step can be a little difficult sometimes, right? So I'll share this much. In Washington Heights, which is where it has one of the highest homicides for domestic violence. Sorry, Ed, I thought you were yawning. In that community, there has never been a march to uplift the voice of mental health. And so actually Long Live Our Butterfly held the first march with Yeshiva University. And there's a lot of processes now where men who came out to the march, we were expecting like 5 or 10. And honestly, we had over 150 people come out. So clearly the community themselves is being honest. The community is already being honest, saying, hey guys, whatever it is that exists now, it's not working. So how do we start maneuvering and journeying through whatever labyrinths we need to go through to start saving lives? And this is where programs like the one in Connect with the roundtables, so important. There's so much that happens there. And now the Brides March, for the first time ever, they've been trying for like 8 years to get men to come to the march. But of course, majority of men, when you hear Brides March, you're thinking, no, this is an attack on my gender. This is an attack on me. I'm not about hearing no woman in no wedding dress telling me blah blah blah. I'm not signing up for that, and nobody should. So it's understanding, again, narrative is everything. Understanding where we come from when we do these chants, where we come from, where we're talking about Gladys, who in a split of a second, when her back was turned to the door, turns around, and that's the last thing she does. That's what's bringing the anger. That's why we're shouting. That's why we're doing this, that, and the other. So all of this is, again, narrative shifting, understanding, and repetition and education. At the end of the march, there will be a wellness program for men. There will be a wellness program for women, because women need accountability too. And, that would be hopefully in the forefront. We all need to practice accountability through being honest. And I'll stop there.
I was just going to say one last thing, though, because I don't want folks to leave thinking that, mental illness or mental health issues causes domestic violence. It's causational. Domestic violence causes PTSD, creates trauma situations, triggering situations that pass from not only relationship to relationship, but generation to generation. And some other things that we need to also recognize is like resiliency is also passed down from generation to generation, right? So we have to recognize that as well, and that people can get change, people can get well, men can be redeemed, or anyone who harms you, mothers can be redeemed, right? It's not a one size fits all, of course, but to also recognize that trauma is real. Unresolved trauma or unresolved violence begets trauma. Unresolved trauma begets normalizing unhealthy relationships. And we just think that's the way it is. So one part of this march, and I think all of our work individually, is to really educate folks that one, this exists, it happens, it can be prevented, and you can effectively intervene and give people the resources they need to stop it and interrupt it, because that's the goal, right? I don't want the next generation of men to pick up the wrong things. At the very least, we teach critical thinking, to ask that question, why it is the way it is, and what path and what decisions we make.
Well, Quentin, I would have to respectfully push back just a little bit. I would say, dear brother, that it is mental illness, because you would have to be mentally ill. Something has to be going on that's in balance, that causes you to beat down someone who would be considered physically the weaker gender. Okay, if I'm a man and I know that more than likely I'm stronger than a woman or a child, there has to be something going on with me that's messed up that says that I should beat down this person or nearly kill them. So,
brother Deshaun, in my years of doing this, maybe 5% of the men that are in my batters groups or even my circle, I do multiple levels of groups.
Yes, sir.
5% of them have a true mental health issue or a true anger management issue.
Do you think like a violent slave master? Do you think like a violent slave master has a mental health issue if they abuse violently a slave?
You asking me?
I'm asking the room.
No, I think it's a power and control issue. Like, some people truly have a mental health issue that the violence goes towards, no matter what your gender is, what your race is. But some brothers who are sometimes diagnosed as having anger management or mental health issues,
not diagnosed,
only right, they're undiagnosed, but only are violent towards women, not towards men. So if it's a true mental health or anger management issue, you're violent towards the cop that comes, you're violent towards your boss, you're violent towards your colleagues, not just the women in your life that we feel, because we're socialized to have power and control over or be the head of our households, be violent towards only them. That's the true litmus test. Is this person being violent towards everyone or just the women and girls in his life?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Understood.
Cool.
So I think that one of the things I recall hearing Charlemagne the God say that he didn't find it embarrassing for himself to go and seek professional help, right? And for most of us, that's why I can appreciate your group, right? For most of us, we deal with it on our own. And a lot of times it don't really get us the results that we're looking for. And for me, as I say, man, I'm a professional, and I can be honest about it and just say that, it is always about how, if I share something with somebody, it's always about, for me, because of my professional image versus my private image, how someone is going to take what I share personally with them and how they're going to use that, maybe against me, particularly if it's something that's embarrassing, right? And it's harmful, because remember, for all of us, we've got something that nobody really knows about but us, right? And the only one who can keep that secret and never tell anybody is God, right? But for some of us, we really do need to release some of those things that we're holding on to in order to find the kind of freedom that we need. And that is why we can't really communicate with each other the way we need to, right? That's why again, Brother Quentin, I appreciate your group, right? Because it takes courage, man, for not only for you to do that work, but it takes courage for the brothers who come to the group, right? And be willing to trust the people in that group that they're going to allow them to do that. But and that's why for me, I don't think that, it took me a long time, right? My wife will tell you, it took me a long time to get back into dating, get back into trusting somebody, because it really took me healing myself, right? And being able to learn the mistakes I was making. And, I told my wife the other day, we were walking into a store. I told my wife, I said, because we hang out, that's my partner, right? We do everything together. People see her, they see me, and they say, man, you and your wife are always together. She's my friend, right? I love hanging out with her. She dope. And I told her the other day, I said, you don't nag me, you don't aggravate me. She said, you don't nag me, don't aggravate me. When she get on my nerve, I tell her, right? She got space to tell me that. And when she do that, right, we give each other space, right? And I told her, I said, yo, I'm cool with you. And I don't even feel good going out when I'm not with her, right? Because I hang out with other cats, but it ain't the kind of real conversation. And Dashawn will tell you, Dashawn, every time you see me, who I'm rocking with.
You're always with Mrs. Riley.
I'm always with my wife. And I'm telling you, me and this sister been rocking for over almost 20 years now like that.
Nice.
Think about that for a minute. Now, I'm not saying I had that the first time around. I'm telling y'all the first time around, I got it wrong, Brother Quentin. I did. I got it wrong. I made all the wrong mistakes. But it took me 5 years of being by myself, dealing with me, right? Getting my own shit together. And then when I got with her, it was like, yo, I'm like, yo, I know who I am now, right?
That's beautiful, brother. That's beautiful, man.
And that took a process for me to be able to do that. But I look at brothers like you, and I honor y'all, because I wish I knew y'all 5 years ago, man.
Yeah, I get that all the time. I know. I wish I had myself growing up too.
Or even these sisters that are here that would allow me to be honest, right? And not judge me and say, okay, brother, I'm gonna let you be honest, and I'm not gonna, call you a punk or, make you feel bad for, because I told my wife, I said, I said, when we started dating, I said that, God told me when I was praying and I was asking for help, he said, your ability to love has to be greater than your ability to hate. I'll never forget that.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, I was thinking about how we were saying that the men are the protectors. The men are the protectors sometimes, and that leads to violence. But men also have to be the providers, which I think speaks to the capitalism and the fact that when poverty is part of the equation, that definitely feeds the dynamics of relationships. And I think sometimes women and, have to depend on men for financially, and that has implications on both sides of why sometimes women stay in relationships, but also the type of control that a man can have, and also just the violence that can come from when we treat men like they're supposed to be providers and they can't do that, and how that shows up. So just acknowledging that external factors, are inside of our relationships.
And thanks for saying that, Lethy, because that's the one thing I wanted to mention. Like, we've been in this conversation is about what is a man, right? We always have, when we do our training, we talk about what is a man and what is a woman, and we break down, write it down on these charts, and we get stuck on the P's with men, like provider, protector. We come up with synonyms for the same thing. But when we talk about what is a woman, we fill up sheets and sheets and sheets of paper describing who they are. So one of the things that we've been doing is redefining manhood, right? And we talk about providing protector all the time. And then I had some of my guys talk about and speak to the women in their lives, or whoever their partner may be, man, women, wherever it may be. Like, what protection do you need from me at this point, right? Because one thing that we've done is, like, I will protect you in exchange for some of us telling you what to do and what to say and what to look like and what to wear, right? It becomes an exchange rather than a mutual thing, because Black and brown women, they protect us like crazy, brothers.
Yeah.
There's so many examples.
Yeah.
So we have to protect them the way they protect us.
Yeah.
So we have to redefine protection and not make it an exchange, right? I'm protecting you. You can't go out. You got to do it by my rules, or you can't do it at all. That's not protection, right?
And I feel like sometimes extracting too, like feeling like you have to, if you have a relationship with a woman, you can't be friends. Like, you have to want to be with that woman. And if you can't have a sexual relationship or an intimate relationship with that woman, you don't need that relationship. And if women have done more work to figure out communication, and we're Black and brown women together that need to unify against an oppressive system, learn from us on how to communicate and learn how to expand your thought of what your relationship with a woman can look like other than that power and control. Because when white people step into a race equity conversation, they need to trust and believe the fact that they are holding the privilege in the relationship, and they have blinders on about it, and they don't recognize how they're walking around and acting out that privilege. Men, similarly, if you really do believe that there's a gender and power dynamic, you have to step back and look at how you're showing up in the world in a way that is taking up a lot of space. It's not collaborative. It's using the women as a way to elevate yourself instead of protecting women. Baba Zaid shared a video on the Brides March Instagram page, and he shared audio of Malcolm X saying that white men protect their women, and Black men will never be respected in society if y'all are not protecting us. So we are butterflies. Long live our butterfly. Speaks to the fact that Kilsy's sister, Ramona Elizabeth, was with a partner for 30 years or so, married, and he left her as if she wasn't sufficient or something, moved on, and she found herself and became a beautiful, gorgeous butterfly. And during the pandemic, he came back into her life, and the rest of the story we know, but forgot my train of thought.
But that very speech that Zaid shared, Malcolm also had said that the Black woman is the most unprotected woman in society, right? She is, and that is because of how we show up in the world, right? How brothers show up. We don't show up as necessarily the providers, necessarily the protectors of the world, because a lot of I was sharing with somebody the other day that we were watching that girl Coco, right, who won the Open, and the reason she could be who she is because she saw Serena and Venus Williams when she was a child.
That's right.
Right. The reason her father could coach her the way he did was because he saw Mr. Williams do it. Right. And Mr. Williams went through all of that racism, all that shit that he had to go through. He went through it. And when because when they showed that video of little Coco when she was 8 or 9, watching Serena and Venus, and she was jumping up and down and dancing and all of that, here she are just a mere 6 or 7 years later, and she copied exactly what she saw.
That's right.
Right. And that's the same thing with us, right? If Quentin allowed me the space, I'm messed up, and he allowed me to go into his group, and I see brothers being honest and doing that, then I'm gonna feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, there's a place where I think I can get my shit together in here. And if sisters did that too, right, then maybe, just maybe, we might be able to say, you know what, we got safe spaces women can go to, men can go to, and then we can come back together and we can say, yo, we all fucked up, but you know what, we trying to get it together.
Right.
But the problem is we committed, and there's no places like that, right?
And that's the thing that's what we're trying to really kind of replicate, right? I do this work in Brazil. I do this work in Asia. I do this, in other parts of Africa, because it may be a different context in terms of terrain. The philosophy and ideology is very similar, right? So there's different ways and approaches. And one thing that we do, because I think something that Lethy mentioned, is that we the example for brothers around violence in relationships. We talk about racism and how they show up in racism and how power is or lack of power is in racism, and to think about that in terms of sexism, right? And like the positions women have in that. So it's these parallels, these intersections, is how you have these conversations. And Brother Malcolm and Dr. King, we talk about their levels of masculinity all the time, as an example, because the brothers that we reach in communities, they know them, and we break it down even further. Like how does King show up? How does Malcolm show up in their attitudes? And like, a lot of the calling out that Malcolm did of Elijah Muhammad around, the women within the nation, that was a level of accountability, right? So pulling out these examples from our leaders, and recognizing their lives, and like those brothers sacrificing so much for the greater cause, and so it did harm to their families.
That's
and how
right.
the children were raised, the relationships with their partners who are equally as needed in the civil rights and ultimately the human rights struggle. So we approach it the same way. Like, part of this is about equality, yes, but if it takes violence to equal 50-50 to the table, we have to move beyond that and be mutual.
Yep.
Take about mutuality instead. So like, even if I'm only giving 30% to the relationship, it should be seen as the 50-50 because it's to the whole. And sometimes the sisters will be contributing more than we do, and we got to be comfortable with that. We got to be comfortable enough with our manhood to accept help and to realize that women are our partners in this. So sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
That we need help and from men and from women, right?
And I just want to jump in really quickly. It's almost like it's so important for men to come forth and speak their truth. Even statistically, is one of the reasons why I don't really like to use statistics when it comes to domestic violence. The reason why we see more concrete and more true to ratio statistics of women is because we are coming forth, because we do feel more protected than the men. But what's scary is we have a couple of statistics on men, but to be quite honest, I as a woman, I as someone who has been in the field, I as a survivor, I'm a 2-time survivor of DV, as losing my sister, I am afraid to say and to see these statistics of men, because I don't think they're true. I don't think they're not even halfway the truth. And how can we create and develop more systems, more what it is that the Black and brown men actually needs if you're not saying it?
Mm-hmm.
And these are the type of spaces that I want to again mention the round table for Connect. Just come forth, and even if it's for one thing that you're going to come and share, but help us, help the community, help ourselves. Even if it's attending a bride's march, talk to one of those ladies in a bride's march, in a wedding dress. Why are you here? Why is it that you're screaming so much? Talk to me, because I don't. And I'm gonna go to Moana, the movie. It's a Disney movie, but if you notice that the mountain was always the angry one, and it was so hard to get to her, but the key was her heart, right? And once they got to her heart, you saw how beautiful she became. And so I want to warn and say, I'm not saying that it's every man's job or responsibility to heal us. However, what if you come forth and join us for the Bride's March and ask us, why are you here? Start understanding. Maybe that'll do something, maybe it won't. And then maybe you don't have to come back. That's fine. Try the round table. Hey guys, when I spoke to those girls, that it didn't work. But we have to start somewhere.
And I wanted to jump behind Kilsy to share that the wedding dress is not an anti-male symbol. I mean, what does the wedding dress symbolize to folks? I'd love to ask the room. What does a wedding dress symbolize?
It oftentimes symbolizes a bride. It symbolizes, quote, purity.
Virginity, virginity,
feminine quality.
Yeah, and love and hope.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's kind of a symbol.
Me personally, I didn't take it as being anti-male. There are issues that women, we live in a patriarchal world. And patriarchy has affected women of all so-called races for thousands of years, and women go through a lot, especially Black women, Latino women. It's something that Dick Gregory said a long time ago when I was in high school. He was speaking about, in the case of African-American women, he said, they live in a racist and a sexist society, so not only do Black women have to worry, he said they got to worry about crazy white folks and me.
That's what I'm saying, exactly.
Yeah, so I wanted to just clarify that it is a symbol that welcomes everyone to think about the concept of marriage and love, and the idea that a tragedy could be so close to that when it comes to intimate relationships too. Like, my aunt's story was televised in '99 before cell phones. It was caught on camera. It did move people. It moved the founder of the marches, a woman named Josie Ashton from Florida, who saw the case and was an advocate and met with my family. And because people came with us to court and continued to lift up this name, the judgment on that perpetrator, it's never going to bring my aunt back, regardless of what time he's serving. But it demonstrates that violence is not okay, and there's an accountability in our legal system. But there are many cases where, because a man is the judge and a family is going through grief and trauma in the moment, and they're not sure how to advocate for themselves in a court process, the judge just can offer a plea deal arbitrarily. And patriarchy is in the system of why that man chooses, what they think is the fair justice on a case, and our legal, there are other issues that will be brought to light at the march, and that we're continuing to collaborate to figure out how we use the platform to move systems that are constantly re-victimizing survivors who've lost family members because they don't have the wherewithal to interact with the system after they've lost a family member unexpectedly. And so Kilsy's done a lot of advocacy around that, but just wanted to speak to the legal system as well, and just that men are very welcome. Please wear white or Black in mourning of victims that have been lost, and also to use the symbol to lift up the platform of this conversation. And to honor my aunt who was murdered on her wedding day in a wedding dress, sadly, tragically. And her story has moved people, and I'm honored that folks are still lifting up her name, because there are a lot of families that have lost family members, and we don't know all of those names. My aunt is Gladys Ricard, and she was a special woman, and she continues to be that.
Well, listen, before we run out of time, I want to do two things. One, I'd like to ask both of you sisters question, for me as a brother, I guess, and because I've had a friend of mine who lost his sister to domestic violence, right? But the question I would ask you sisters is that, and I never really asked my friend this, although I wanted to, I just didn't know how. But I guess I could ask you ladies to sort of say, why would a sister, she had to know, was she protecting this? Would she protect this guy because she knew maybe if she told her brother that she was afraid that her brother may have done something about it, right? Is that what ladies do? They just
question, sorry.
So the question I'm asking, why would sisters not tell their brothers, right? Like, because that haunts this brother to this day, right? He says, why would my sister not tell me that, she was afraid of this guy to the point where he took her life, right? Why?
I would like to take a first stab at this. Again, I come from a point of humanity and honesty. And let's be honest, the incarceration system is not our friend. The system is systeming, all right? They're holding those Black and brown people in there, okay? So as women, we are the mothers. And we too are protectors, but in a different manner than men are, obviously. Men and women are made different. Believe it or not, as a survivor, and again, I am a survivor 2 times. you don't want to make a report on that Black or brown man because you know you're going to screw up their life. And then even though you're the one that's being abused, you still see that person and you're like, I understand why this man feels the way that he is. I understand that he has abandonment issues. I understand that his father wasn't with him to raise him. I understand that he's been cheated on before. I understand. How can I get out? However, the problem is that when we try to get out, what happens? We realize that we've been too dependent on that man financially, or too dependent on that man because of immigration status, or too dependent on that man because I'm afraid he's going to take my kids if I leave, too dependent on that man because you just don't know what type of shaming I have to go through. Now after the Kim Kardashian situation, people record things. There's so many things that may seem minute to a person that's not going through this, but it's a big deal for a survivor. And so you get stuck like a cycle and it repeats and you're like, how do I do? What do I do? Here's the problem. Can I go to my brother? Absolutely. But guess what? I would go to Q before I go to my brother. You know why? You know what my Black and brother is going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they're going to do? They're going to try to protect me. And what did I say earlier? Protection to a lot of men equals violence. They're going to go and step up to that man that's abusing me. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper and I'm going to leave and then I'll yield the floor. What about when we say things like, you know what? I want to get involved because 3 days later, they're going to be in love and I'm the one that's going to be shitted on because I tried to help. So with that, I'll yield the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that both Kilsy and I, in both of our cases, our family member left an abusive relationship. And we're for years, they had left these men that continued to stalk and follow them. What are they going to call the cops every single time that they experience, oh, he's driving around my block? So that part that women are at risk when they leave, I think it's really important now as to why would she stay? Like, didn't she know he was like that? Do you think you would ever believe at a family barbecue that your sister's ex would shoot her there in front of everyone? I mean, where does it happen that this person who was, to people that they know and alleged to love, I mean, it's nothing you can ever expect or prepare for. But also, I think it speaks to your point of how are we able to talk to one another about the things we're going through honestly and support one another through that. We have so much trauma in our communities. We don't have the skill set. We would all have to get a master's in psychology to be enough support for one another. However, I do think that one thing I've learned in the domestic violence work that I've done is to be a constant friend. Even if it's 10 years of sitting there, hearing that person cycle through the cycle of abuse. Oh, he's treating me well now. Look, but isn't he great? He's always showing up for me. And because a perpetrator, often the description does not look like a killer. It's someone that's very respected in society. It's someone that shows up very well dressed, which sometimes it impacts court cases. Speaking back to the legal issues, if a man shows up in a suit and a woman shows up distressed because of domestic violence and he has more resources than her to show up and represent himself, you would think maybe it's her, so I'm just saying that the patriarchy just shows up in so much imaging of how we show up. So it's not easy to know someone's going to kill your family member. I think it's easier to try as individuals to emphasize humanity because even as we talked about what is manhood, all of us kept going back to like, you'll probably try to protect me and it's what we still are kind of, that's the narrative. And I hope men don't feel they have to exist in violence always. Like when, I, as a woman, I want to protect. To Quentin's point, we take care, and love, and we become butterflies when we receive that back,
Well, I like that. Well, it's something that, we always say that, it's not up to non-white people to end racism. It's up to white people to end that. And I say it's not up to women to end patriarchy and domestic abuse. It's our responsibility as men.
That's it. That's the basis of the work that we're doing it, and we're doing it in partnership with women. We got to, men just got to realize how they show up and what harm we do. And, and the most effective thing I've ever did in terms of my work with men is to show how their behavior impacts them more than anybody else, right? So, and the other thing too is accountability, right? So sometimes systems fail us. I don't know too many examples where the system has showed up it was fair to Black, brown, queer, older, poor people, whatever facet of a relationship to a system. So we have to think about accountability and what that means. So sometimes accountability, and rightfully so, when you can understand it, because that's all the options we have, it means that somebody is punished, is paid back, is put into jail. You know, on a strength, sometimes that needs to happen. But for the most part, the system is not even going to allow any fairness in the accountability, right? So sometimes you get none of it at all. Like these sisters talked about, the system not truly giving them justice or accountability in the cases of their sisters and aunts and mothers. So we have to think about accountability, what that means. And we kind of define it as acknowledgement of the harm that we've done, realizing that there is a consequence, be it in a public system or not. Also being involved in the change process, learning to undo the things that contributed us to making the decision to be harmful in our relationships. The last part is reparations. What repair can we do in the context of that? And sometimes, or most of the times, that should be decided by the victim survivor, because a lot of times, and these sisters mentioned it, like they don't want the police to be involved. They don't want to live with the guilt of involving a system to do harm to the person that's doing harm to them. I get that question all the time. I get that, Brother Q. Everybody calls me Q. Brother Q, what do I do when I don't want to call the police, but I'm still being harmed and I'm still in danger? Right. So we have
to jump in on the police point, Quentin. Sorry, just because we talked about the legal system, and I wanted to mention police as a safety thing. Like, it's hard to call the police; they show up and they don't take the perpetrator out of the house, and now you're home with someone that you just called the cops on, for example. And we talk about police reform, and obviously domestic violence, and those units need more sensitivity. I'll pass the floor back to that.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is a good point. And so alternative means than systems, right? So we're looking at restorative justice as a means of dealing with intimate partner violence and domestic violence, or transformative justice, and what that means and what that's driven by. And a lot of what that really means is that, because this is a domestic violence, people see it as a private issue, happens between closed doors and between a couple, right? Husband and wife, or partner, somebody dating. But the reality is there's a very public connotation to it. So if communities play a role in allowing it to happen, communities can also provide safety. It can also hold somebody accountable at the same time. So that's why it's important that we see this not only as a women's issue, but it's a men's issue, because we do most of the harm to men or women. But we also see it as a community issue, where the community can hold this up.
Men are also survivors of domestic violence. Like you have a friend that their wife was killed, or you are also survivors of violence, y'all. I just want you to know that. And the other thought I wanted to bring in was another surviving family that is collaborating with Long Live Our Butterfly this year, is the family of Ariana Reyes Gomez, who is an NYPD officer. And so she's been actually a great, a helpful ally in that her family's coming to the fold, and they're bringing NYPD to speak up against domestic violence, which, speaking to the issue of sensitivity, it's a great entry point for that collaboration. And so we're going to have 2 vigils along this 7-mile route through the Bronx, El Barrio, Washington Heights. And one vigil is in honor of Kilsy's sister. Kilsy did some advocacy work to have the street co-named where her sister passed away, Ramona Elizabeth Way. We will have a vigil there. Folks can bring pictures of loved ones that have passed away due to homicide, which I think is honoring these lives of Black and brown women. And also we're going to talk about some of the systemic ways we can, work together. And then there will be a vigil at Ariana Gomez's house on Grand Concourse by the courthouse. Folks can also, and some of the police will be there to honor her life. So I just did want to share.
And let's give that date one more time. When is that going to be?
Next Tuesday, September 26th. And September 26th is the unfortunate day when my aunt passed away in 1999. And we've done the march to honor that day. And it also kind of ends up being a kickoff to October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and a march that I'll let Kilsy speak to, which is another, a lot more awareness happens in October around domestic violence. So.
And what time is that? September 26th, next Tuesday. What time?
We start on 179th Street across the bridge from Jersey there on Fort Washington. We'll be there at 8 a.m. You can come and borrow a wedding dress. People who have been married before have donated dresses to us for the last 22 years. This has been a movement of many chapters. And we have them ready for folks there at breakfast, a program where many elected officials from the community will show up, and we're going to have a community conversation. We'll start marching around 10:15 in the morning from that church in Washington Heights. Around 12 p.m., we'll be in front of the Bronx courthouse, the criminal courthouse on Grand Concourse. That's around 12. There'll be some lunch, and then we'll continue the route from there. But you can find out more at bridesmarch.com, all the route information and other details.
Bridesmarch.com. Okay. Well, listen, Kelsey, you want to have some last words?
I just wanted to say that I want to highlight the family member that Lethy spoke about. Last year, we lost Ariana Elizabeth. Actually, her and my sister have the same middle name. Ariana Elizabeth Reyes Gomez, who was a police officer and who was murdered by her ex-partner. Very similar to my sister's story, very similar to Gladys' story. And here's the thing. We're seeing some magic happening because police are coming out for her justice. I've never seen that before. Maybe in my generation, I don't know, maybe I was raised under a rock. I've never seen police unite with community for a purpose against the system like we're seeing it now. And mainly is because in the police department, if you just about give a hint that you are in a domestic violence situation, whether you are the abuser or the person that's causing harm, or the person being harmed, or the first thing that happens is they take your weapon away and you go on desk duty. Right. So at the moment, we're working with the governor's office so that we can pass a law, hopefully in the near future, to help and uplift the safety of the police officers via domestic violence related issues.
Well, let me say we're out of time, but I want to thank each of you, really. Quentin, I'm extremely proud of you, my brother. I don't even know you, but I'm proud of you, man. Proud of the work you do. And you two sisters, I bow down to both of y'all, really. And for me, I just want to say I appreciated the way y'all talked tonight. Everybody gave each other space and time to talk, and nobody yelling and interrupting. I enjoyed the level of respect, and I want to say thank you to all three of you. And so let me just say, y'all have never been here before. We are a political hip hop radio talk show. We actually broadcast from Rutgers University, but since COVID, we've been online. But here's the question we ask everyone. Y'all probably already heard it. So we would ask, what hip hop record or group do y'all guys listen to when you need to get some inspiration? Either one of you can start.
I want to go first. I was so nervous. I was waiting for you to ask the previous guest, Dr. Love. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't listen to enough hip hop. I'm a true, activist. I can't name a hip hop song. But I'm going to shout out some personal friends. Homeboy Sandman is one of my favorite rappers and a friend, and Jason Rosario and Charlie Cruz in Washington Heights. So that's usually I tend to listen to hip hop in support of underground. I'm glad hip hop has brought New York City back to life. I went to Newark recently to see Bilal, not hip hop, but hip hop in the way of the feeling. So that's gonna be my answer.
All right.
I'll go next. In our men's roundtable, coincidentally, we're talking about 50 years in hip hop and hip hop's impact on manhood and masculinity and relationships. So we've been talking about that the last couple of weeks, and we will throughout the year, because there's a lot of conversations not happening around 50 years of hip hop and how it's impact on us as sons and daughters of hip hop, right? But I'll raise up one particular brother right now. Independent artist becoming more popular. This brother, Messiah Ramkusin. He's a really dope MC. He does this work as well. He does work around violence prevention and working with youth and formerly incarcerated. Messiah Ramkusin, and he's the brother, if you might not seen his t-shirts, has Black Fathers Are Necessary. So the same brother who's promoting that shirt is also doing some really dope work in hip hop, and we got to support brothers like that.
All right.
I'm gonna drop Lauryn Hill too, just to rep the ladies as well.
I'm just gonna say I love me my Jay-Z and Nas. I can live with them. Well, not with them, personally, but I can hear their albums over and over again all day. They all have a song that can help me, get motivated or I'm able to like connect with based on what I'm going through. So those are my men, Nas and Jay-Z.
Who's it? Nas and Jay-Z?
Yeah. Well, listen, again, I want to thank you all. Dashawn, I want to thank you for coming through tonight and co-hosting with us. And
my honor, as always.
Yep. And so if you have any last words, Dashawn, I'll let you say something if you want to.
No, listen, I just want to say I wish the march much success, and we have to end domestic violence, period. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yep. And brother and sisters, I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you all again. And we're definitely going to do what we can to continue to promote, the Brides March that's coming up. Why don't you say it one more time?
Check us out on Instagram at Brides March, Facebook, Brides March NYC, or go to bridesmarch.com. Come support us. We look forward to meeting you, hearing your stories, and healing Black men, Black women, and the whole community to lift up the names of our ancestors. And yes.
Next Tuesday, September 26th.
Next Tuesday, September 26th at 8 o'clock, right? 8 a.m. All right. Well, listen, y'all know that this is All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. We've been on the air now 16 years. And so we want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. We want to thank the disciples for coming through. And we thank the folks from Invest Newark that came through. We thank all of our guests, but I appreciate the rich conversation that we've had tonight. And I feel a lot better about myself sharing some things. And I'm immensely proud of all three of you. I can say that. I don't know you, but y'all some beautiful, badass Black people. And,
likewise, this platform is amazing, and I'm honored to have been invited as a guest.
And so anytime you guys want to come through, please, our door is always open. All right?
That'd be great. Next month, TV Winners Month. That'd be great.
All right. Next time, y'all, we'll see y'all. As my brother Zaid would say, he ain't here. So he would always say, we'll catch y'all in the whirlwind.
Yes. Appreciate you.